All righty, everyone. Thank you for coming on board tonight, even though I'm a little bit late. I've been trying, and I'm going to explain to you why. I have been trying to create this one video, and the one that I uploaded, I'm sorry to say, is not what I really meant to do. It was going to be a little bit more detail, if you will, in the subject matter. That was, of course, how to edit drone photographs, DNGs to be exact. You know, RAW is always better than just whatever other format a drone might produce, mostly JPEG. JPEG has a very low bit rate in, the image, how shall we say, the dynamic range of the images is sort of clipped in a way, and you're never able to restore it or extract it. Even though you may not be able to see it on your screen, you can extract it. Okay, and that's the importance about shooting RAW. I know, everyone else, JPEG is fine. Of course, it's fine for most situations until you need to extract a bit of missing visually, that is, detail. Now, what happened the last couple of days, and I know that Robert is here, and he lives here in Maryland. We had a pretty heavy-duty storm the other night, and for the first time in, God, it seems like, years, we lost power. And I lost power right as I was rendering that one video. All the printers went off, of course. I don't have those boxes. I would need 13 of them, plus one for my computer. Where am I going to plug those in? Right? Those, I don't even know what they are called, but, that would be the only thing that saved the situation. So what happens? Boy, the next morning, I just went to bed. It was late. And the next morning I get up and I try to revive everything. And the house's alarm system was, went haywire because the internal battery, the rechargeable battery the unit has, is not a digital, up-to-date system. It's an older, more analog type alarm system. So it started to beep in the middle of the night. Good Lord, I had to get up and deal with that. So didn't get much sleep. The next morning I tried to set everything up, revive everything, see what happened to my video. Well, I had to redo the whole thing all over again. And so rather than dealing with it, I began to check my printers, and I wanted to print something and it was not communicating with the printer. And I'm going like, what the heck? I walk over to the printer and I look at the LCD display, and it's telling me that it does not recognize 4 cartridges. So, well, you can imagine, after a night of no power, I power up the printer. It performed this humongous cleaning cycle. So I think it used up the ink of all of those 4 cartridges that were once low. So I was a little bit, like, why is it showing me this non-recognized signal? It should either show me that it is empty or it is low, nothing else. Well, yeah, auto reset chips, that's the problem. They actually will not say red. In other words, the red X like OEM chips will. They will just go unrecognizable. So again, on top of all of that, I'm trying to print something, and I thought, okay, if it's not recognized, maybe that's why it's not letting me print. So I began to try to refill these 4 cartridges and try to reset them. Remember, I said that I have an older firmware than most people out there, so I thought maybe I could get away with it. No, I could not. So then I find out later on, after all of this mess, that I lost communication from one of my 2 USB cables that I have from all of those printers through a couple of powered hubs into the side of my monitor. Well, the wire connecting my monitor to my PC, that connector, not the wire, because I tried different ones, no longer works. So all of these printers were not being recognized. So now I had to deal with that. Finally, I got everything rerouted, and I am seeing 80% of my printers. The ones that I cannot see, I just left, disconnected for the time being. Yeah, it's that bad. So I finally printed the image that I wanted to print, which was one that I wanted to do a video about. So I finally did that video yesterday, or was it yesterday? The day before yesterday. And uploaded it, and you will see a shot of my grandson's house where he lives. Big old house, great expanse of land, and again, a great opportunity for me to go and fly. That's the only area in this highly restrictive zone that I live in that I can sort of get away with flying. I cannot really go too close north because there is a helipad at the local hospital. I'm just outside of that. So it's been a heck of a weekend. And of course, today my queen upstairs wanted to go to IKEA, so we went to IKEA, did some shopping. So I tried to come back because I attempted to do this video and something happened to my audio. It was garbled. It's like, I know I garble a little bit, but man, not this bad. I sounded like a zombie. So deleted that, started from fresh all over again, and I finally just uploaded it within like 10 minutes of 5 p.m. So I asked people, please watch the video because tonight we're going to be talking about the very subject of that video, and that is how to simply edit these types of files that you get from these drones, because Lightroom has built in these correction profiles for not only still cameras and lens combinations, but also drones, specifically Parrot and Afi and Parrot Bebop. Who would have thunk it, right? And I just don't get why. I'm grateful that they do, because I can just load my images all at once, select them all, apply correction to just one, and then hit the button that just says synchronize, and it will apply that lens correction. Basically what it is, it's going to remove any curvature or field, whether it is pincushion or distortion, whether it is pincushion or barrel. So right now, if you look at an uncorrected image, it looks like it's bulging outward in the middle. And if there are any kind of lines, whether they're dissecting lines or, directional type lines, they will not look straight until you apply that correction. And I just love the fact that I can just do it like that. I don't know if QImage has that. They do have it for other lenses and cameras, regular DSLRs and regular photography cameras, but I don't think they do drones yet. But certainly Lightroom does. And so it's a great feature to have. What I wanted to do tonight, let me hide this. What I wanted to do tonight was to kind of cover a bit what's going on with the Pro 1000. So in a bit more detail, I haven't called Mike yet to tell him what I discovered. So most people have actually been getting, at least that's what they have told me, an empty notification. But what I got was not that. It was simply I don't know what cartridge this is. And so when I would remove it, and I wanted to check, well, if it's actually declared unrecognizable, then maybe that's empty, because sometimes auto reset chips react that way. They will not say, hey, you're empty now, just like a regular big money OEM chip will. No, these just go unrecognized, and then you reset them either manually or by removing them and then popping them back into the printer. And the printer will see it as a power interruption, and it will then activate that resetting process, and the ink level will now be declared as full. Okay, you make sure that you refill that cartridge to physically also match that declaration of being full. You want to do that. So since my Chroma optimizer was the first one to go unrecognized, I went ahead and took it out. I already had the 80 ml of fluid or Chroma optimizer loaded in a big 100 ml syringe. I had the adapter installed. I went over to my sink in case I spilled anything, and I proceeded to refill it. So certainly I removed the cartridge from the printer. So I interrupted power to that chip. Well, I popped it back in, and initially I thought, it's working, because it showed the actual position on the LCD for that particular cartridge. And it didn't say anything, bad about it. So I thought, So I popped the lid back up. I closed it. It went through the recognizing process. And it said, I recognizes a genuine but used cartridge. And it did not show any increase in level or anything like that. And the same thing happened with the other 3 cartridges, which were gray and the 2 black cartridges, matte black and photo black. So since I realized it's not going to be recognized at all, I went ahead and leisurely refilled those and put them back into the printer. And then later on, I realized when I looked at my devices and printers that all of those printers were offline. And that's what threw me for a loop, because I thought, oh no, what the heck is going on here? This was due to the power outage, probably. The night before that happened, in fact, that evening, late at night, we were getting some flickering. And computer went off a couple of times. I just, it rebooted automatically for me. And everything was fine. But I never checked the printers. It never occurred to me that the printers would have just, the connection or communication between those 2 hubs and my computer would have just gone haywire. So I never really checked that evening whether I still have communication with all of those printers in my computer screen. So it wasn't until the next following morning, and actually late that day, because I had gone to school to tutor, and I came back and I said, hey, let me go downstairs and begin to work. No. So anyway, that was a shocker. And again, this can happen out of the blue. Who knows what happened to that port? The port on my monitor is kaput. So no longer can I use it, and it's a pity, because that's 2 free ports that I could have been using. So now I have used up every single port of my computer, and that means what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 10 ports that I have completely used up. All of the accessories that I have plugged in. Of course, I can remove like the port to the microphone and install something else momentarily, especially when I'm transferring video over from my cameras and audio from my audio recorder and such. But anyway, yeah, so, long story short, like that's possible ever with me. It's been a heck of a couple of days, and I got everything working. Again, today's garbled audio during that video producing attempt, I don't know where that came from. It doesn't seem to be happening now. Am I coming across understandable, or do I sound like a Neanderthal? That's what I sounded earlier, and it freaked me out, because I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here, right? Anyway, let's go ahead and say howdy to everybody. Robert was here early, Smeltzer from Avenue, Maryland. And I did indicate to him that I wanted most of you, if you were going to join the live stream tonight, to please look at the video that I finally got up within like 10 minutes before 5. And again, it's only about 9 minutes long, so you can watch it. And I take you through the steps that I go through with my DNGs from the Parrot and Afi. Okay, that process is something you need to go through, because the resulting images that you get basically is a true raw result. Low contrast, low color saturation. And again, you are given the widest dynamic range, and everything's going to look compressed, not compressed, but everything's going to look like it's been, in other words, it's not filling out the full capability of the histogram in your editing software. So it's going to look flat. It's going to look blah. Okay, that's what it's going to look like. And at least it's not the opposite way, which will be, more contrasted than it should be, more saturated than it should be. You cannot come back from that. That's a point of no return. You can go somewhere from a flat original file, flat, no, low contrast, low saturation. You can increase that. But you cannot come back from something that has spilled, if you will, over the black cliff and the white cliff. Okay, you cannot regain that information. It is gone. So if it was clipped by the processor in your camera as it captures the image and spits out a JPEG. If that information has spilt over those two cliffs, then you cannot recall any of that. And that's why I still say, even though many have told me I'm crazy, that you should always shoot in RAW. And sure, it's going to take a lot more storage space. It will. But hey, storage space is now pretty cheap. Not what it used to be in the past. And if you have the cloud, you can upload to the cloud and it'll be there forever, basically. At least that's what they promise you. So, today, Nathan and family, and I think my son as well, went downtown D.C. for the parade for the Nationals. Yeah, I cannot believe. I don't follow sports too much, but I can't believe that the Washington Nationals actually made it, even to the playoffs. I was shocked. And the fact that they beat the Houston Astros, wow, that's amazing. Even though, they had a much better record than the Nationals apparently did. And anyway, so that's nice. I hope there isn't too much craziness going on down there. Sometimes people start to riot when something like that happens for no good reason, just for the heck of it. And it really makes no sense. But anyway, so I hope they're having a great time. Beautiful day outside, about 55 degrees, no more than that. And so they should be having a great time. Again, it was like no wind whatsoever today. I could have been flying had I not been dealing with all of these problems down here. But I hope that I have solved them at least momentarily. So the next videos that I'm going to do will go beyond what this little short video demonstrated. So I'm going to show you a trick, and maybe I'll do that here tonight because I did promise someone that I would. Everyone is complaining about dark prints. That is the biggest complaint. Dark prints and double profiling, the two biggest problems. That would be in the drone world, like flying without calibrating your drone. And then you complain that it flew into a building on its own, or flew away, or did this or that, something you did not command it to do. Well, you have to calibrate all of your equipment, as I always say, and I always preach. But, hey, stop talking already. Let's say howdy to everybody here. So Robert was here early. Anthony Petit from Texas. Charles Verbruggen from Belgium, Antwerp, that is. George Gabb from West Texas. Art of Women Photography, all the way from Australia, is here with us. Cliff Medina, my buddy. DJI Mavic Mini. Yes, I saw that. And everybody has been talking about it way too much, I think. It's been really funny, the uproar about this tiny little drone that DJI decided they better put out to compete with the Skydio, which will just eat it alive, okay? It would eat that drone alive. Yes, it costs more, but there's no way that it can even compete with the Skydio. But anyway, again, if you're starting out and you have $400 to burn in your pocket, go ahead and get a Mini. I'm not really that interested in it myself. Drone worship, my buddy Dan, okay? Again, if you want to learn without any BS, you go to Dan, okay? He's a true hobbyist. He is not satisfied with just looking at his drone. He's going to take it apart. He's going to find out everything about it, whether they can be improved upon physically or any other way. That man will find out how to do it. So he kind of raises raises the ire of a lot of people, because there's a lot of channels out there that are just spewing garbage, if you will, because all they need to do is put out more videos to get more views and make more money. And so again, those channels kind of grow, and the smaller channels that are honest do not. Well, we don't want to talk too much about that, but my buddy Dan is in the hospital again. He has a rather strange and uncommon condition. I looked it up, Dan, after I saw your video this morning, and all I can say is that all of our prayers and our thoughts are with you, my friend. Recover soon. Get the hell out of that hospital and get back to doing what you absolutely love. And hopefully you'll be back to work and making some money. So again, just like we all have to. Again, so thank you for being here. If you're still here, you have nothing better to do, you can hang out with us. We're going to talk a little bit about everything, actually. And who knows, I may get you interested in photo printing. You do have a nice 3D art solo that's capable of photography as well as videography. And I have ways to edit video that I think no one else has come up or shown us how to do on YouTube. So I plan to do that in a series of videos in the future. I'm going to show my way that I go about creating a cinematic sequence that has no abrupt moves or anything like that. Because we all have them. We all create those moves as we fly. Edit them out. Learn how to do a sequence that progresses. And so I will be doing that. And it'll be teaching you, again, how I go about doing that and how I apply it to music and make it make sense as you're viewing it. So you're not basically taken away from the enjoyment of the video itself by little problems that you see crop up. Okay, that's not what we want. We want you to immerse yourself just like Hollywood does. That's what Hollywood wants you to do, to immerse yourself in the movie and not be worried about little glitches and things that may get past the editors. So anyway, that's coming up soon. Again, just get well. Again, don't do anything unnecessary. We're all here. We're going to back you up either now, tomorrow, or next year. So just get well. Do everything you need to do to get well and get back to doing what you love. Mr. MNJ1193. I think you're new. I don't recognize your name. He says, what's up? John Fletcher is here from Nottingham, England. Cliff Fit from Denmark is here, and it's cold, he says. William J. McCaw. Hello from the wife's business in Jacksonville. All right. And Art of Women Photography says UPS. Yeah, that's what I need. UPS is what you were thinking of for power loss. Yeah, I would actually just use one on my computer. There's no way that I can hook up all of my printers. There just isn't enough outlets, nor do I have enough money to buy that many to cover all of that. Spike597 from Madison, Wisconsin. Cliff Medina says, remember, Jose, I had the same problem with the Pro 1000 auto reset chips. Yeah. So if you could sort of clarify what you were seeing, in other words, remember when your OEM cartridges went empty, they just basically showed the empty red X. I believe that's what it was, rather than just, hey, you don't recognize me anymore. So here's the funny thing. So I said that I'd refill 4 of them. So what the heck did I use? What did I use to be able to continue printing? And printing those images or prints that are behind me. He had sent me, Mike that is, he sent me a set of a later edition of the auto reset chips. Okay, with the vague idea that maybe, they might be different. Who knows? And to compare them to my original first release of those chips, since I had that earlier firmware and no one else did. Everybody else had a much later firmware. So I thought, okay, well, I did discover something interesting though. Normally, the way printers work is that if they allow you to use a resetter, that just means they could care less about seeing the same ID code for, say, yellow. Okay. So with the P800, that's the case. And the US is notorious for blocking printers. So the P800 is blocked. In Europe, the same printer, it is not. Okay. So what happens is if you are able to use an auto reset chip, upon power interruption, it will reset itself to full. So that's just one part of the coding, okay? That part of the coding is read and write. The ID code for the color is read only. So you cannot change that to some other code that the printer may accept or not, okay? So what happens is that when I changed my chip that was not being recognized with the same color chip from the other batch that he sent me, it recognized it as a genuine cartridge. Okay, and that's the clue. It recognizes it as a genuine cartridge, which simply tells me that it wasn't just a matter of, the chip, because that chip has a full level on it, but does it have the same ID code number for the color that I exchanged? In this case, it was chroma, it was gray and black, okay? So what I'm thinking is that the individual ID code is also different. How did they manage that? How in the world could they possibly manage that? Okay, they would have to have some sort of code generator that would generate a logically correct serial of numbers or code that a Pro 1000 internal computer would see as a logically correct code. That's difficult to do. That's really hard to do. Or it's the same code number, but the levels are up and the printer doesn't care. Could that be it? I don't think that's it. I think they're producing single-use chips as well. And what I would hate to think is that they sold us all of those chips for like $24, $25 each, and you need 12 of them. And all of this time, they were single-use chips. They were never auto reset chips. Because again, I haven't heard of anyone, even in Europe, telling me or anyone else in any of the forums that I frequent, whether they have been successfully resetting themselves as they go empty or unrecognizable. No one knows this. So that struck me as really interesting, because now I know that I should be able to replace the chips on the other remaining 8 colors, top them off, continue printing like nothing happened. Okay? That should be the case if this is what, is going on internally. So do they each have a different color code? Maybe. How did they get that? I have no clue. Now, the Pro 1 cannot be reset either. Okay, the chips on those cartridges cannot be reset. I would not say cannot. It's just that companies like Red Setter just did not think it was even not feasible, but just economically, feasible to spend all of the money to develop a possible resetter like they did for the Pro 10. Well, everybody's still buying Pro 10s now. Everybody's still buying Pro 100s now. But no one is buying Pro 1s because they're out of production. They stopped producing them. Something was inherently wrong with the printer mechanically. B200 errors all the time, just because you didn't use the printer for a month. All that should do is possibly clog my head a little bit. I would have to run a couple of cleaning cycles to clear it up. Not give me a B200 error. Okay. So I have a feeling that they discover a flaw within the design and just stop making it. So you will not find new Pro 1s on eBay or Craigslist. If there are, they're very, very rare, and people are asking ridiculous amounts of money, okay, which is nuts. So yeah, that's what's been happening. And so now I got my printer working. I just printed that image today after I got done doing that video that I just uploaded not even, half an hour ago. So have a look at that. Tell me what you think. And if you would like to see more on that subject, just let me know. Now let me continue here and see what else we got. Kurt Jet says hello. Art of Women Photography says I have 2 UPSs. One is 2200 VA for the computer and the monitors, and one is 2200 VA for the Pro 2000, the Pro 1000, and the Pro 1. All right. I would need a few more. Robert Lively from Texas says, howdy, 1066 Internet says, to Art of Women Photography, how long do those UPS give you? In other words, how long can your power be out? Well, I think what happened with us is the power went out for just a bit of time, maybe an hour or two is all it is, but it just threw everything down here out of kilter. So, and I didn't find out until the following day. Pimentel Portfolio from Kansas City is here. Andrew Mantovani II from the Bronx. Women Photography answers saying that you get about 30 minutes to 90 minutes depending on if I am using computer or printer or not. That would not be enough for most of our power outages around here. Sometimes we have no power for days. So, but again, if you're working like I was working on a video that I was rendering and it just stopped dead in the middle of it, and that was not fun. That was a lot of time wasted. Pimentel Portfolio, do you shoot your Adobe video in Plog? Plov? No, it's not Plov, Plog with a G. I do. Yeah, you got it on the third attempt. I do. That's basically the same as the very dull result you get from the regular DNG files. And I'm going to quickly show you just a little bit of that in a minute. That'll be our next little discussion here. Again, if you guys have questions, go ahead and post them below here in the chat. Always welcome to ask whatever you can come up with or have problems with. I'll try to address them. If I cannot, I'm sure some of the people here are a lot more intelligent than I am and can possibly also help you out. Again, I rely on everybody here. So, okay. Cliff Medina says, I always shoot raw. Can't do much adjusting with JPEG. Again, that's correct. I'm going to show you something interesting on my Facebook group about bitrate. Not necessarily file format, but bitrate. In the difference between just one, say 8-bit compared to 16-bit. It's quite amazing. Bernhard Moore says, from Southington, Connecticut, my subscriber chats are under the video. How can I get it back? The site, I can see the video and the chats. I don't understand what you mean. Your subscriber chats? In other words, are you seeing the live stream with the chat next to it, with the comments? Let me know if that's what you mean. Steve Carpenter says hello. He says hello to Dan, the drone worship, and how are you doing? That's good. I'm so shocked that people here are also sort of connected with drone flying and the things that you can do with it photographically. I really was scared to bring up that new subject within my current channel because I thought people would just flee. And apparently that's not the case. So that is good. Kim Young-un. Hello, sir. Shout out needed. Hello, sir, from North Korea. Oh, come on. Seriously? Anyway. Cliff Medina says, I wonder if the Canon Pro 1000 reads the ID of the enter cartridge. And if it says it's genuine, once it says it's empty, it's looking for the new ID. For me, and I wish I should have recorded this on film because that was kind of telling, okay? I didn't do it because I was just pulling the last hairs out of my head, trying to get this printer set up again, not realizing that it just was offline on my computer. That's why none of my software apps could communicate with it. So what I did see was that it was a weird a weird, not an X. It was something else. I don't remember exactly what. I'll be able to see it the next time. I'll definitely document it. But yeah, all I saw was 4 colors being not recognized, or I thought they were just still low or whatever, or empty. And that happened because when I powered the printer manually, it ran a huge cleaning cycle. And of course, I only had 1 printer reading low. In fact, 3 of them were actually officially reading low. And then after that cleaning cycle, they all read what I saw, like not recognized. And so when I removed one and I popped it back in after refilling it, it just said that a genuine cartridge had been, inserted, but it was used. And so it never, I never got that full level indication. That's how a real auto reset chip would have worked. So I don't know what was going on. The other colors are still not even close enough to reach that point yet. So I got to do a little bit more printing on it to bring those colors down. Right now, I can only testify, if you will, what I saw happening and what took place. Upon replacement of the chip, everything was fine. I saw it as a completely new and genuine chip. And of course, the ink levels displayed full, which was the whole goal of this. So, Cliff says that he has 5 that show an exclamation point. So, yeah, that's what I saw. Exactly. And so that just means that's different than empty. Okay. That's different than the empty notice. So what have you done with that? Have you been able to disable ink monitoring? And if so, how exactly did you do that? I would love to know, because I tried doing the procedure as you normally perform it on any other Canon printer, and it did not work. Okay, so please share with us what you did. If you did indeed able to disable that particular channel or any of the other channels with the exclamation mark, were you able to do that? And I don't know whatsoever if I was able to print anyway to that printer under those conditions, because I was offline and I really didn't know that until I filled all the cartridges up. I thought it was the condition of the cartridges that prevented me from printing. But no, after I filled them up and they displayed as full, and I had the other levels were way above empty, I still couldn't communicate. Then I come to find out that my printers were all offline. So it's been a lot of fun. Yeah. Cliff Medina says, sorry, Jose, the H is next to the J. Oh, I see. Yeah, I did read that. It's okay. I knew you didn't mean that. Dave Gibson from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada is here. Levite Apparel, just mash that like button. Yeah, folks, hit that like button so that we continue to move up as far as YouTube is concerned. Pimentel Studio says, P-Log is difficult for me to balance. I'm going to do videos. I'm going to teach you how to do that and get great results, okay, with the widest dynamic range you can possibly get, okay? So that's coming up. Don't give up. Don't give up yet. If you use a preset, then it's really applying a global preset, and that may push you outside, okay? So you want to be able to have everything, let's just call it a fence. Black and then a fence. White and then a fence. Anything that goes beyond that is gone forever. Okay, so you want to have everything inside with room to play. Okay, then what you do is you expand that all the way to the edges. You create a white point and you create a black point. And don't spill anything over. Okay, keep everything inside. And then you deal with the so-called middle tones. We'll deal with that. I'll show you how to do that. I'll show you how to edit properly. I'll show you how to remove glitches or just jittery motion out of your videos, you don't have to show the viewers that. Okay? Never show them that. Only show him or her the best portions of your footage that you capture. Okay? We'll cover that. Don't worry. Okie doke. You're using DaVinci Resolve to edit your drone videos. Okay. That's a little bit, I don't use it at all, so I don't know how to use it, but I'm going to teach you how to do it in Premiere. And basically everything will be applicable. Okay. I believe you'll be able to do everything I can do in Premiere in DaVinci. Anthony Petit says, something surprising to me is the number of people that get solar panels and don't get whole house backup and battery systems. Yeah, that's what happened to me. Okay, a whole roof full, and nothing is really storing power. And simply because it's one of these companies that's basically making a profit. Okay, so they're not about to give you something extra that's gonna raise the cost of the whole investment that they put on your roof. Okay, and all of your electrical panels and everything is replaced. So yeah, that would be awesome. I thought about that the other day myself as well. Bernhard Moore says the comments are under the video, not on the side. Oh, adjust your view and see how that works. Okay, maybe you scroll down a little bit. That happens to me on my phone a lot. Bobby Bo says, hi Jose, are you using third-party ink on the Pro 1? If not, is it pigmented ink or dye? Well, always only use pigmented ink on the Pro 1. Okay, there's really no dye ink set for the Pro 1. Okay, so the answer would be obviously yes, pigment, and I am using OEM. Okay, I am using original inks, although I could be using Precision Colors Signature Edition inks. I don't know where you're located in the world, but yeah, I could be doing that, but I have access to OEM ink in bulk. Basically, I remove it from empty, so-called empty Pro 1 cartridges people just give me, and I can buy here and there. And I extract the ink, and I also have 700 milliliter cartridges that I can extract ink from. Those are used for the Pro 2000 and higher. So at least right now, I do have the luxury of being able to use OEM ink. Now on the Pro 1000, I'm only using, I think it's like 5 colors OEM. One of those, of course, is Chroma Optimizer. So I'm using Chroma Optimizer, I'm using yellow, I'm using red, I'm using blue, and magenta. The rest are PC, okay? PC Signature Edition. Results-wise, tops, okay? But yeah, Pro 1, no dye ink for the Pro 1, pigment only. Rick Johnson is here. He is the man that flushes CLI 42 cartridges for you and then sells them already prepped, ready to go, and basically pretty much guaranteed. He has not had a single failure that I know of on any of the several hundred sets of cartridges he has already sold to folks. So he's the go-to guy on eBay for CLI 42 cartridges. Why would you want to deal? Really? Let me see. Do I have one here? No, I do not. Why would you want to deal with modifying your own? Unless you love the process, you want to fiddle around, you still need a second set, because when you remove that empty or partially empty OEM cartridge, it's going to take you a couple of days to modify it. You cannot leave that printhead without a cartridge in that slot. You just cannot, for even a few minutes. So you need to have a second source of already modified cartridges. The ideal way would be to swap them one by one with PC SE inks for the PC 42 type inks. And as far as I know, I have not seen a bit of difference between OEM and PC SE. That was the whole idea. And I've been repeating this over and over, but that was the whole idea about creating this ink set so that people would be able to migrate either completely, okay, by just removing all your OEMs and then installing a set, like for instance, like Rick cells, refilling those and popping them all back in. One cleaning cycle after you install them, and now you are 100% PC, and you still don't see the difference. You could have printed one image with the OEM inks you had on there, remove them, put all the new PC refill cartridges in there, and you don't see the difference. Print the same image, no difference. Wow. I mean, that's what I said. I said, oh my goodness, what has he done now? Yeah, it was that good. In fact, the only difference was I actually had a slightly darker black. Shocking, because third-party black ink pretty much stinks. Okay, it really does. It's not as dense as OEM. So in order to be able to achieve something like that, that required practically a whole year's worth of research, hand in hand working with the ink manufacturing lab to blend and tweak and this and that. And I was like, come on, Mike, stop already. Sell that ink set. It's fantastic already. Oh no, he had to tweak it a little bit more. And that's how he works. He may not answer your emails immediately. Oh gosh, you get all upset because he did not answer your email. It's just one guy dealing with all of this. I have nothing to deal with compared to this guy. So yeah, I will answer your email. You got a question about any other products and you're upset because he won't answer you within half an hour or a day even, let me know. Send me an email. Put it on my Facebook group. I will address it for you. Okay. I'm actually that close enough to be able to address it. And so if I cannot, I'll probably call him. He'll take my phone calls for sure, most of the time. Anyway, so I'll be able to handle it for you. That way, you're not upset and he's able to continue working and improving his products. All right, we got a bunch of more people here, so okay, let's see. You're saying hello to, oh, here we have Mike B. Drone Ranger. He's in Northern Virginia. He's here with us. Says good evening to everyone. Says hello to me and hello to Steve. Steve Carpenter is here. Wow. Howdy, Mike. Hope you are doing well. Mike B, aka the Drone Ranger. Steve Carpenter is also a drone pilot and has his own channel. Please support each other if you have an interest in flying, whether it is for fun or for photography. Check out these channels, and if the person seems honest to you, support them by subscribing and watching their videos. All right, Cliff Medina says, I wonder if the Canon Pro 1000 reads the ID. Yeah, we saw that already. He has my chat keeps moving on it by itself, so I got to make sure that I keep track of it. Flushing feverishly in California, that's what Rick Johnson said, and he's got over 400 sets already done and sold. And again, that's not a bad record. Let's see. Bobby Bo says, to answer your question, I'm watching from a city close to Munich in Germany. Wow. Cliff Medina says, I had a long talk with Mike, but when I had the problem with the yellow, which simply said empty, I could not disable. So it did say empty. Isn't that something? Because from what I know, they're not supposed to say empty, but are supposed to just be unrecognized, and the printer just stops. And so at that point, with a working auto reset chip, you just remove it, put it back in, In fact, some of the older Canon auto reset chips were a little bit weird in that even if you had like a power outage, if you just turned off the printer and turned it back on, all your cartridges would be reset to full. And that was scary because, you know, you would have to make sure that all of them were refilled, especially these sponge type cartridges like the Pro 100. The early auto reset chips for the Pro 100 work that way. Any kind of power interruption, whether it is you removing the cartridge from the carriage, or the power going out and coming back on, or you pulling the wall plug, or you turning the button on and off, that would cause that cartridge to reset to full. So nothing happened, nothing worked. I had to get my old used cartridge, which I luckily saved. Then I was able to print again, but now I have those 5 with exclamation points. So you have not been able to disable ink monitoring, is what you're saying. Okay? Because a lot of the companies claim, the companies that sell third-party inks for the Pro 1, the Pro 1000, they claim that you can disable ink monitoring. Now, in order to do that, I would assume that you would have to have done that while you were still running an OEM cartridge, okay? Which means that, for instance, and I may experiment with that. I may actually do that. Here's what I plan to do. So anyway, the theory would be that if you're running an OEM cartridge, it's going to declare it empty. And when it does that, that's what it's supposed to do, not the auto reset chips. So when it does that, I think you actually can receive an option to press, I don't know whether it's the power button or the advance button, the paper advance button, for like 5 seconds or whatever. And that would disable ink monitoring. And you can continue printing. You just wouldn't any longer see an indication for magenta or yellow or cyan or whatever. It would just be blank. But you know that, you know, it's letting you print, and you just keep topping off that cartridge. I don't think you can do that with the auto reset chips that do not auto reset anyway. So yeah, he says no, cannot disable. So I think you can disable, like I said, if you, like, I'm going to try to do that. Gosh, I hope nothing goes wrong. I'm going to go ahead and take one of my empties and fill it up like halfway and pop it back in there, and then it will say, hey, you're empty, and then will then give me the option to disable ink monitoring. And then I want to see if I then remove that one and reinsert the one with the new chip, the new single-use chip. It's also auto-reset, but I see them now as only being single-use. And see if that will then take that channel from being no ink monitoring, blank, to, again, full. And genuine, because it sees it as a genuine chip. It did. In fact, as I kept going, inserting, cartridge after cartridge, it would tell me, you have now inserted 4 genuine, and then it would tell me the colors. So, it's weird. It's weird. I can't explain what's actually taking place there. Mike, yeah, I'll take that into consideration. Bernhard Moore, Macaw does not seem to work for me. Just get a large screen, but thanks for your input. Yeah, sometimes when your screen is not large enough, it seems that the chat will be located in another, where your comment section would normally be. And that happens on my phone as well. Cliff says, Jose, you missed part of what I wrote. Okay. I think Mike said, as long as I keep ink in the cartridge and not set off the internal empty sensor, I should be fine. Well, no. Should be fine as far as continuing to print, even though you got the exclamation mark. I'm going to test that. I'm going to test that. Well, see, the internal sensor lives in the internal compartment. How far down from the cartridge is it? I really don't know. Okay. So you have ink ahead of the cartridge on a line, and that line empties through a sensor into the internal compartment, and then from that point you feed your printhead dampers and your printhead. So there's a lot of ink downstream from the actual cartridge while it is installed. So what he is saying is that if the cartridge goes empty, truly physically empty, and you're printing now, if you allow it to print, see, I don't see how that can possibly happen because of this. The idea being that when the chip says you're empty, the cartridge really is empty. We're talking OEM chips. The cartridge really is empty. It is that accurate, yes. Downstream, after that, is the hose that goes, or the line that goes to the internal compartment. There are sensors in there. The compartment will check its level, okay, of ink being stored. When it drops to a certain amount, it triggers a sensor which opens up a little valve which allows ink from the cartridge to flow to replenish and bring it back up to a certain operational level. Okay? What would happen if the sensor says, yeah, I know you're empty. The chip just says you're empty. But I'm going to go ahead and allow that valve to open, even though I know all I'm going to get is air. And air does not travel. It's just there's no ink. So I'm going to get nothing, but I'm going to allow you to continue printing and drop that compartment level even lower. Nah, I don't think that's going to work. So maintaining ink in your cartridges would only work if you get maybe one of these exclamation points where the cartridge at this point doesn't even know if it's actually physically empty or not. Okay? All it does is get that notice. And so if you have, like I did, I still had ink in my cartridges. I could hear it. I could slosh it around. I still had plenty of ink in my cartridges, maybe about 10 ml on the Chrome Optimizer and a little bit more on the others. So adding ink to your cartridges would make sure that they never go physically empty. But could you continue printing even though you have that exclamation mark? I'm going to test that. Thanks for bringing that up. That's a good point. And maybe this week I will talk to Mike and get the nitty gritty on that subject, because I'll share with him what I just went through. And again, I wanted to be the one going through that because I was simply getting information from others who were experiencing a problem like that, but only through zone 2, I believe it was. Let me think. Remember, I had only the blacks, the gray, and the chroma. And I think that's what a lot of people were also experiencing. So come to find out, I need to get in here a minute. So I'm going to take you guys over to the screen. So here we are in the Pro 1000 preferences. We're going to go to maintenance and we're going to click one of the cleaning cycles. And yeah, there you go. Exactly. Group 2 is PBK, MBK, Chrome Optimizer, and Gray. These are the 4 colors I was getting the exclamation mark on. Has anyone out there, except you, I know that you have a yellow one that has gone empty as well, simply not gotten a so-called exclamation mark, but an empty indicator? Because empty indicator will allow you to then disable color management, not the exclamation mark. Funny that it's always zone 2. And that's something we were talking about. We were discussing that. How weird that was, okay? That it was always zone 2, going empty first. Are those the 4 cartridges that are used the fastest? Okay. Are they? Who knows? Who knows? But at this point, every single person that was declaring with it, some people actually claim that they reset him, that they got him to reset. So now I gotta go, okay, if they're telling the truth, that really throws a monkey wrench into the works, because now I don't even know what's going on. But, if they were not being truthful, then yeah, so far only people who have had colors go empty in zone 2 have had trouble with resetting. Okay. And Mike had all of these, theories about a chip being bad in that zone would then prevent all the other 3 chips from resetting. They would also go bad. And it was kind of strange that, like I said, that I still had ink. I still had ink in basically all 3 of them. And they all went with the so-called error indicator code, not recognized. Something is up. So anyway, at least now they're working. And so now what I can do is keep an eye on the other colors. And when they reach that point, if they do reach the same point, barring we don't have another storm and a, overnight power outage to create, recreate the same problem, we'll be able to then solve this and see if they simply, none of them replace, none of them reset, or is it just related to a particular zone. But again, Cliff has had a yellow one. Let's see. I think you did mention yellow. Yeah. He says, when I had the problem with the yellow, which said empty, I could not disable. So I need you to clarify that, Cliff. When you said it went empty, did it actually say empty? In other words, like the original OEM cartridges did before you refilled them? Or was it some other sort of error indication, like the exclamation mark? Because that's different. So, Steve, you want to do that? There you go. I need all the help I can get. Okay. Let's not jump to conclusions regarding Dan, laughing out loud, aka the Drone Ranger. No one's jumping to conclusions. I think he'll be okay. Yeah, I don't think Dan wants to do this. He doesn't have time for this, to be messing around with my stuff. Jose, only two have I ever been able to disable so far. Okay, so PBK and MBK were disabled. Now, how did you accomplish that? Jose, I am not 100% what it said, but it stopped printing and said replace. Okay, that's an empty indication. That's not an error. I got 4 errors, and they were all on the zone 2, which is the one that everyone was complaining and reporting about. Yours too. That's really odd. So I have no idea at this point. This is great information, though, my friend. I'm going to pass this on when I call Mike this week. But I know you guys discussed this for quite a while. So, well, all I can say is that single-use chips work, no problem at all. And you can continue to use that printer. I'm getting a new maintenance cart tomorrow. That'll make 4 of them that I have. I'm on the 3rd one right now, and so I always like to have an extra one on hand. All right, so I did a video and I got mixed reviews on it. Basically, I was shooting for achieving neutrality and correctness in your images. That means, like, straight out of the camera, I can throw them on Lightroom, open them in Lightroom, and they display on my calibrator monitor, that is, as correct to the actual scene as possible. So I started to explore the possibility of your camera sensor really not being able to accurately 100% capture all of the colors represented in a scene. Well, if you just go outside tomorrow morning, you will be presented with millions of different shades and hues of color. Okay, we live in a very colorful environment, and of course color relies on light. That's what gives you the appearance of color. So what if you had a set of control colors, colors that are always exactly the same, and you would use those colors that are always exactly the same as a control? So you would take your camera, you go outside at 10:30 in the morning, and you're going to be shooting lots of pictures in that direction. So the lighting being, say, from the back or from the side would never really change within the next half hour or so. So you want to be able to capture all of the colors in front of you accurately. And you know that by noon, the sun will be in a different position. And so the color temperature coming down upon the same scene will be slightly different. It will change in temperature. And then late in the evening, when the shadows are long, the golden hour, they don't call it golden just for the fun of it. It's because it's really golden. It'll be a lot warmer. The temperature, Kelvin, drops. Okay, it becomes toward the red. And so how do you compensate for that? These colors, they emit color because of their chemical structure, nature, and light hits it, and you get the reflection back at you, and you perceive a certain color. Well, sensors don't have a brain in them like we do. We can actually automatically, your eyes will compensate for slight differences in color temperature. You know something is gray, it's going to look gray to you, regardless whether it's in the morning, at noon, or late in the evening during a sunset. It'll still look gray to you because your brain will tell you, oh yeah, I know that's gray because I remember before it was gray. So I'm going to make you perceive it as gray. A sensor can't do that. It's going to see it at whatever hue or value the light falling upon it will cause it to be reflected back up and then projected via the lens to that sensor. So you need to be able to have, after all of that, okay, you need to be able to have a set of controls that you can use as a sample. In other words, colors that do not ever change. And you shoot a picture of that close up under whatever the lighting condition it is that you are going to then subsequently begin to shoot photos for the next 20, 40 minutes, whatever. It doesn't matter, as long as the lighting doesn't change too much. So in comes one of these. And there might be other sources of control patches that you can use in your photography, but this is the industry standard. So we're going to go ahead and stick with this a minute. And so simply all of it is, and you may have seen this before, this is the X-Rite Color Checker Passport. I've always strived in creating a complete workflow, if you please, from the camera to your display, and then through your application, and eventually, because we do print our images, to your printer. So this is all it is. This will set you back around $90 something. But I got it for free when I bought my last Color Monkey. So in the back, we have simply a gray card. This card is perfectly neutral. Don't ever touch it. Okay? Don't ever let any rain fall on it or anything of the sort. In fact, photograph it under the same conditions you're going to be photographing the rest of your shots under. Don't change angles, okay? Photograph it under the same conditions. If you're working in a studio, then you have a controlled environment, no problem, no hassles. If you're outside, then yeah, sort of oriented toward the camera in the same direction you're going to be doing most of your shooting, and take a close-up of it, okay? Just let your auto settings do it for you. And then you come into your editing software and you can use your eyedropper, in other words, your white balance tool, and measure it. Because this is officially an 18% gray card, it will then lock your exposure to a 50% point from maximum white to maximum black. It'll give you a correct exposure where your automatic system may not have given you the exposure. Another way of doing this is to, if you use a camera on manual, you can actually, I believe you can just basically take a reading off of this. The old timers like me used to take the light meter and actually measure that, and that will give you an f-stop and shutter speed combination, of course, tied to the ASA, as it was known back then, now it's ISO, of the film used, and that will give you a middle of the ballpark exposure. And then you would shoot at that, and believe me, your photographs will be correctly exposed. Now, we're working with color now mostly, so we want to basically use this as a neutralizing tool. So if slightly bluish light fell on this, that would be captured as slightly bluish. But your eyedropper tool, your white balance tool, would then neutralize that and bring you back to a neutral condition. Oh, I don't want to work in neutral. I want to use my artistic eye. Sure, you can do that, but first, always start neutral and then get artistic. Don't do it prior to that. You have no clue what neutral is. You have to achieve neutrality first. So, with the new software that I just downloaded, I'm going to go ahead outside. Maybe tomorrow may not be a good day because we have some activities. But the next day, Monday, I will go outside and I will shoot a close-up of this with my little Nikon D3300. Nothing fancy. I will take a close-up of this and take a look at this. Again, never touch this at all. But those are your control patches. Okay? And they each perform a function. Now, when you shoot this on RAW on your camera, especially since this is basically, I hate to say it, but it's kind of meant for Nikon for whatever the reason. Then you open it up, open that image through the application for the passport card, and that will then automatically target. It will actually physically target them. It will create little selection around every one of those little squares. Okay, and then it will read them just like you would read patches you create for a profile for your printer paper combination. It will read each one of these squares, and since it knows exactly what the values originally were, okay, that's the key point. It knows exactly what these values are supposed to be. That's why you're never supposed to touch them, because the grease from your finger, your oils on your skin will change them. So you need to never ever touch these. Just photograph it, open it up in the application. The application will target each square. It will determine how badly or how good your sensor was able to capture each one of those colors. Okay? You might say, well, that's not a lot of colors. Yeah, it's enough, believe me. So it's going to capture those, and then it's going to interpolate and create a camera lens profile for that particular day. Okay, this is the key point. It's not a universal profile you can use. It'll just be for that particular day because it takes into account the lighting conditions that you shot under. Now, in Lightroom, I love doing it in Lightroom because it's just so easy. You simply load all of your images that you shot in that shoot, and including the one with the, passport card. On your camera modes or your shooting modes, you will see that camera profile you made. You give it a name, of course, a distinctive name, and you apply it to that first image. Okay. And then you go, control, select all of them, and synchronize, and it will apply that correction across the board. Now, what you will notice is when you look at the shot that you actually made of that card and you compare it to your actual card, you'll see errors in color rendition. But when you apply the camera profile, those errors disappear and you will be able to get a near match. So what does that tell you? That without the camera profile, that camera sensor was not able to capture accurately all of the colors in that card. Isn't that something? So once you apply that profile, everything is corrected correctly. That means that all of the other shots that you took will all of a sudden be brought to life, basically. And all of the colors that existed or were difficult to capture by your sensor will be corrected for. If it's a very drab, blah, scene, maybe nothing needs to be corrected. But let me tell you where that comes into play. You're asked to do a wedding. And those girls, not the guys, they're wearing black suits. Who cares? Those girls will be wearing bridesmaids' dresses that may be some kind of pastel color. And if that pastel color lives in the blues, violets, lavenders, you'll have a hell of a time reproducing those colors. Okay, you will, until you apply that camera profile. Those girls will be ecstatic. The bride will be ecstatic that for once somebody was able to capture those very delicate colors on those dresses. And that's what you need to do. Your reputation will shoot up sky high. And so people may ask, well, what is that for? What is that good for? Well, that is one of the reasons. And that means that when you open those files and you load them in Lightroom, they are being displayed to you by your calibrated monitor that you use either one of these or one of these on. That monitor now, you went through all the trouble of correcting those files. So why would you not display them in a monitor worthy of displaying those files that were corrected so accurately? So that's the second part of this whole process. Camera calibration, monitor calibration. Now you visually are looking at those images as good as they get. Okay? Really, as good as they get. So, what about white balance? Okay? There are many ways to do that. In the old days, we used the 18% card, and there's one included there. So you can use that. Use the eyedropper tool, simply, and correct for any kind of inaccuracies in white balance. I have two types here. These are pretty cool. I got this off of Amazon. One of these has several functions. So here's a single gray card. And in the back, you have a series of colors. You can use this again. You can shoot this and then set your white point, your black point, and make sure that when you take a reading of cyan, yellow, magenta, you pretty much get nothing but cyan, yellow, or magenta, okay? And not a mixture of other colors. And so normally what would happen if you have a very inaccurate sensor, you take a picture of that. Instead of this containing only magenta, it may contain some other color. You'll be able to see that when you take a measurement with your eyedropper tool. Okay. This is the one that I like the most. It's just a gray card at the bottom, preceded by a black and a white band. with video, this is very important. And I'm going to go ahead and cover all of these things when I do my series. I was thinking of what else could I possibly talk about? There are no new printers out there. So why not move on and start discussing some other photographic subjects, such as video editing, getting the most dynamic range and the most correctly color corrected, if you will, video that you can then apply a LUT to and change it any way you want. But you really need to start with a perfectly neutral video. And then from that point, move on to whatever sort of, mood you want to apply to your video. Just like Hollywood does that to every single movie you watch. Every single movie you watch, that's not the way it looked. Okay? Absolutely not. They have added a mood, a color grading, or a LUT. A LUT is a preset that you apply to your videos or your photos, and it gives it a mood, okay, that you may want or not want. It depends. It depends all on the viewer. But they're trying to convey something dark and moody. It's going to be bluish and darker than normal. That's how movies work. And psychologically, they affect you while you are watching the dialogue, the imagery, and all of that. So the same thing with photography. You want to psychologically affect the viewer the way you want them to be affected. Okay? So that's the whole idea between, a perfectly neutral image that you should always start with, and then the final result, which may be nothing close to neutral. Okay? It may be, again, a mood that you apply. So you shoot this, okay? You fix the exposure by eyedropping the gray. That would also automatically give you a perfect white balance. Then you set your black point. Here's an actual black, and a white. So you set your black point according to this. With Lightroom, if this black bar looks purple, it's being clipped. So you just adjust it until you only see black. This will become red if it's being clipped. You adjust it until it just shows up as white. You are all set. You have completed all of the corrections you need to complete. At that point now you go edit either way, but you do not touch any of those white and black points you have set. Okay? Because remember, you don't want to fall over that fence or cliff. That should be a lot of fun, I think. I think it should be interesting. I have been doing this for the longest time. So now let me show you some photos. Let me move this a little bit further away from me. So you may have seen this last week. This is the shot of Nathan's house. And let me see if I can get this relatively close without too many reflections. You see there in the doorway, those two little pumpkins? Those are Nathan's pumpkins, and we carved those the other day. They came out great. Beautiful rendition. If they were selling this house and I was 107, I could actually sell them this and not get into trouble. But I'm a recreational pilot at this point, so I cannot do that. No business. Anyway, beautiful rendition of this shot. It did not look like that. If you haven't seen my video, go look at that. It did not look like that. It looked relatively flat and ugly. Okay, that's how it begins. Give you one example. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Red video camera. Red cameras have been out. That's the brand, Red. Have been out for quite a while, quite a number of years, and they are the standard in Hollywood now for most movies. All of those Hobbit movies, they were done with the Red camera. It shoots raw video up to 8K now. And so the resulting video is appalling as far as colors and contrast. It's just flat. But because it is so flat, that means that if you need to fill up this much space, you have this to begin with. Look how much you can stretch. If that was the space you had to fill up and the resulting file coming out of your camera after being internally processed was this big, you just lost 2/3 of the quality of the video. Not only the quality, but the detail. And information, digital information, everything is gone forever. So you want to start with something that fits well inside the maximum you're going to have to fill. Okay, so that's the reason between a regular consumer camera that gives you gorgeous results straight out of the camera. Oh my God, this is beautiful. No, you just possibly lost a lot of detail you won't even miss because you never knew you had it. Okay, to begin with. So that's the point. That's the whole point. Here's another shot. This is the shot that I did the other day before I started with this fiasco trying to do this video. And let me see if I can orient this. So see that big tree in the middle. Again, this is golden hour, guys. So look at the long shadows. Let me back up. This is, I believe, let me see, on this side where my hand is tapping, this is where the house is located. And so we are looking straight east, I'm sorry. The sun is setting on the west side. And again, this came out gorgeous, and this looked appalling to begin with. But again, it's so easy to correct because of that. Let's see if I can orient this. There you go. All right, and then the one on this very last video this afternoon, just before the stream began. If you saw it, then you know what to expect, and this is what you are to expect, this beautiful tree. That's that one tree in the middle. And I went up about maybe 5 feet away from it, maybe about 15 feet up in the air, and I took a straight shot of it with my Anafi. You can see the detail again. When I was editing this, if you haven't already watched it, like right here, for instance, is a leaf. This is a maple tree. Or I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a maple or an oak. There's a leaf right here that I used as an example for my sharpening demonstration. And you can see the ribs on the leaf. Okay. So can the Anafi shoot sharp pictures? 21 megapixel. I think that's plenty. The lens is really good. It does indeed produce some really nice sharp rendition of your shots. They just don't look fabulous in the beginning. And that is the part that you need to get over when you begin to edit under those types of modes, in other words. I think if you just tell it to produce JPEG and use a mode that is not that low profile, that low resolution, low contrast profile, you'll get a lot better results. But at least visually, initially, it won't freak you out as to, oh my God, what do I do with this? Yeah. So anyway, yeah, Pimentel says one of those Hobbit movies was shot at 48 frames per second. So yeah, they use, what they did was simple. They shot at the highest resolution possible, which may indeed be 8K because we don't know what's coming. They want to have the ability to create releases in the future that will fit whatever viewing instruments we are now using. Okay, that's the whole idea. That way they won't be like cutting themselves short, in other words. So they want to have the ability to release an updated version at 4K DVD. Wow, is that ever going to come? I have no idea. Maybe it'll just be a stream of some sort. But anyway, it'll be available. So if you have the ability to shoot that high, and movies are shot at 24 frames per second, this is 48. So twice that frame rate. You got to keep it in that multiple, 24, 48. The next would be what, 96. So yeah, that way you're always able to, I want to say, downsize or downgrade, and you would not lose quality much, because if you start high quality, you can compress that down without losing much quality, but you cannot go from a lower level of quality to a higher level. You will really lose, and it'll be quite apparent what you're trying to do. Mike B says, very nice. He liked the photos. Let me see if anyone else was saying anything here. Ooh, boy. I saw the chat moving around, so I need to head on back and read what I missed out on. Steve Carpenter says, please smash the like button. Support Jose's channel. Lots of thumbs up. Yeah, it's so simple. While you're watching, just hit the like button. What is that going to cost? Nothing, except a little motion with your finger on your phone or your mouse. Again, that really does help. Some people say it doesn't, but it does. In fact, funny thing, there's always going to be someone that'll dislike the stream for whatever the reason. Even that helps. Just interaction helps is what it is. Steve says to Thomas O'Sullivan, if he got up to fly. See, here is Thomas here? Yes, he is. Wow. Alrighty. Wow, this is awesome. I have been on a couple of Dan's live streams. Since he doesn't announce them, so to speak, I always miss them. So sometimes I'll see he's on live and he's already got too many people on the panel. So I try not to interfere. But the other night I saw my name in the title. So I said, oh man, I better be there. So I stayed up till 11, which is kind of past my bedtime anyway. And I don't think I went to bed until 2. And these guys stayed up another 2 hours. Yeah, it's crazy. But anyway, it's a great community. Great hangout. I tried to do a little flying today, squeeze in a little flying today, but I really didn't get a chance. There are some technical reasons as to why. I own and use over 22 polymer batteries, lithium polymer batteries, and because it's getting to be colder and colder and colder around these parts, I figure I'm going to do less and less flying, so I need to bring them all to a proper storage level. And so I've been reducing the voltages equally so that all cells are at this proper storage level and they will not go bad on me. So occasionally when I get a chance, I'll take a couple of batteries for a particular drone, recharge them up to full. I'll go out and fly them until they are discharged to the proper level and store them again. That keeps them happy. It keeps them from going bad. Okay, Eli is here. Let's see. What did he say? Steve Carpenter says, well, we expect to hear some good news by Tuesday evening at Thomas O'Sullivan. Good news about what? Anything you can actually discuss here with us? Art Women Photography says the computer do have a look at the Ilford Gallery Smooth Luster Duo at 280 grams GSM. I have some Ilford paper I really need to try, and since I got the Pro 1000 working properly, I'll go ahead and try it on that. I've been dying to do that. Bobby Bow says, I am at the moment printing my first really prints with the Pro 1 only, some tests with normal paper before. So while you are speaking, I printed on my first Aquarella on that paper, on that printer. So how did that come out? Are you talking about the uncoated Aquarella, the watercolor paper from Canson, or some other type of inkjet coated watercolor paper? It makes a big difference. The Aquarella paper from Canson does not have a inkjet receptive coating on it. It's only coated for watercolor paints because it's meant for actual painting. So it does make a difference. Your inkjet type watercolor papers will give you a much stronger black, slightly better detail, and more photographic look than the meant for painting only equivalent. Bobby says that he got on eBay for, he says view money, but I'm sure he means few money. It arrived out of order. I made a big trip to bring the printer to Canon, Germany, the only repair possible in the complete country. Wow. I hate when that happens, man. Jose says, what is the model of the color chart you are using, showing us? You meant this this one here? Or the, oh, you mean the X-Rite one? The color checker passport photo. I don't know if there are other models. It just says raw color power, control and creativity to capture to edit. From capture to edit. I'll just give you a close-up of it. It looks like this. I got a fancier one that I got with my i1 Pro. I guess when you spend, you know, $1,500, you get a little better card. Basically the same thing, as you can see. The same thing, but you get a secondary card. Whoa. A secondary card that you can use to calibrate your printer. No, Jose, wake up. Calibrate your scanner. Okay. And I have a photo scanner here, so I'm going to go ahead and calibrate that. And the reason being is so that it basically creates a profile for the scanner that can be loaded as the scan is being made before it is processed to a file and saved onto your hard drive. It applies that correction. So meaning that anything you scan will be reproduced correctly. Well, it depends. Most of the time, if I use my scanner for something, I'm not trying to reproduce something exactly the same. So I'll be doing some maybe restoration work on photographs for somebody. I do that a lot for people. And so if I have a black and white image that's no longer neutral, maybe has stains here and there, maybe it's becoming sepia tone, in other words, because of persistent hypo that is still in the paper fibers, and that bleaches out the black in the image, which is basically tarnished silver granules. I want to reproduce that again as a neutral image. I don't want the stains on it. I don't want the discoloration from neutral to brownish or yellowish. So do I really need to calibrate my scanner? Well, maybe not me personally, but some people may need to do that. So they give it to you included with the expensive spectrophotometer over there. So, I mean, I'm not going to turn it down. But whether I need it or not, possibly not. And you simply just use the same software that you're provided with to calibrate your scanner. You're just going to scan it. It's going to determine whether the color patches were scanned and reproduced correctly. If they were not, it'll just apply corrections to each one, just like you do when you photograph the passport card when you're out on a shoot. Okay. So remember, you would have to do this every single time. Now, not with the scanner. The scanner is controlled. The lighting is always the same. So you would have to do that every time you go outside to shoot. Every time you change a lens. Every time you change a camera body. You would have to then create a new profile. That's the only negative aspect of that. But you just keep that file inside the folder that contains all the other raw files in that shoot. And I think you can also use TIFF to be able to do this as well. But again, raw is always better, my friends. Raw is always better. Okay, so everybody is liking the photos that I just showed you. Pimentel's portfolio says, were you using the ND filter? Not that time. And here's why. Here is why. There's a use for ND filters. When they really come into play is when you're shooting video and your camera shutter speed is sky high, like 1/2000th of a second. That's going to make any panning motion that you make, flicker, because each frame is going to be sharp. It's going to look like this. Dot, 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 30 times a second. Okay? You're going to see that. You want motion blur between each inside in each video frame. You want motion blur. Some people believe in that, some people do not. I believe in that. I get the smoothest buttery smooth video when I set my shutter speed to twice the frame rate. So how can I possibly achieve twice the frame rate? That would be 1/60th of a second. And you know, I'm at ISO 100 already, and I cannot get my shutter speed to drop from 1/2000th of a second or even higher. So I put a neutral density filter to cut down the amount of light falling on my camera. Okay, that way I can bring that shutter down. Okay, and you just find the correct amount of neutral density strength. Okay, you want to be to the point where you can say, if it comes out, you put one on and at 100 ISO, now your shutter speed is at, you know, a 1/10 of a second. Well, adjust your ISO a little bit, okay? Until you can get that shutter speed, you're able to adjust it to 1/60th of a second. That will create for you motion blur within each frame so that when you're panning, and do it smoothly, don't do it abruptly, you will get a nice smooth effect rather than that flickering effect, okay, that you get when your shutter speed is too high. Now, shooting photos. In this case, you want a high shutter speed. Okay, you do not want motion blur when you're shooting a photo. So no NDs when I'm shooting photos. I'll let that shutter speed go as high as it has to. Okay, that's the rule. And so, yeah, for video, yes, I will always load an ND filter. For shooting photos, no. Okay. Now, here's the catch. The catch 22. You may want to do both at the same time. Well, then fly as smooth as you possibly can to diminish that flickering effect that you will get from turning. Anytime that image is moving this way or that way on the sensor, as it relates to the sensor, you will get flickering because it's 30 times a second, 30 different frames a second. So you want to create such a smooth pan that you will not see that flickering so much, even though it'll be there. You just won't see it. If you do a fast pan, yeah, then within, say, 5 degrees, you got 30 flickers, you see. If your shutter speed is at the correct setting, each frame will be slightly blurred as you're panning, and the flickering will go away. You will not even notice it. Another possibility of what may look like abruptness in your pans is, and this will happen with a video camera, is the inability of your current SD card or micro SD card to capture video at a fast enough rate. So the Anafi shoots at 100 megabits per second. 100. Okay. Your card better be able to transfer more than 100 megabits per second data transfer from the camera. If not, it's going to transfer as much as it can. Then it gets bottlenecked. And boom, then you get an abrupt jump for the next amount of data to be captured, written onto the card, and boom. So it can never keep up. Okay, you're feeding at 100, but it can only capture bursts of, say, 80 or 70. So you need a super extreme card to be able to shoot and take advantage of that high bit rate that you're using in your video. If you do not shoot at a high enough bit rate or render your video at a high enough bit rate, you will get a lot of what looks like pixelation. It's really compression artifacts. Compression artifacts will occur on JPEG images as well. So never compress more than you need to. Let's see. Okay, we're having a nice conversation here between our viewers. Okay, Spike597 says, is anyone using the new firmware 3.010 for the Canon Pro 1000 using third-party inks? Having any problems with printer recognizing the third-party chips? Well, now that I know that it makes no difference whatsoever to have an earlier firmware, mine is 2.020. Okay, so a lot older. And it apparently doesn't make a difference. So I'm going to wait one more cycle for the next cartridge to go empty or get that exclamation mark indication. And if that happens, then I'm going to go ahead and test it I'm going to test the ability to disable ink monitoring with just one of my empty original cartridges. In other words, it still has the original chip in it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And if that works, then I'm going to then install my filled one that I have a new third-party chip on it, and it saw it as full earlier. You see what I'm saying? I'm testing different things here. And then if that works, then yeah, I'll go ahead and upgrade the firmware just for fun. Why not? We'll see what happens. Hopefully nothing drastically bad will occur. So, okie doke. We got Marsh Mish from Manchester, UK. I think they all know each other because Mike B is saying howdy to him. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some other things. Let's check out Facebook, and I'm going to show you guys. Let's see, here we go. So as you can see, this is the video that I was describing earlier. So take a look at that, see what you think, and if you like to have any more along those lines, just let me know in the comments section. I said hello to our last, how many did we have? About 34 new members. I had 4 people comment, and everybody says hi. See, I do that just to recognize our new members to the group. I don't think anyone that I know of does that. So again, it's just something a little bit extra. You will only find here. 3168 is our membership count. And so that is awesome. We'll see what's happening here. Okay, I just bought a Canon ImagePrograph 2000 printer. I am planning to print A3 and A2 size color and black and white art prints for a professional art gallery. I would highly appreciate any technical and artistic advice. I really dislike that type of question, and I'll tell you why. Because any advice anyone gives me, I may either take it as the gospel or take it as, I disagree with your advice. You see what I mean? It's nothing really of a technical nature that is always going to be the same. In other words, set your driver to these settings, period. And not, what are your artistic views? That's like me telling you, yeah, go ahead and edit everything neutral, but then go ahead and always apply this color grading. No, that's up to you. And another thing is that, why did you get a 24-inch capacity printer if you're only going to ever print to A2 size? Makes no sense. A Pro 1000 would have been just as good. They're just as cantankerous as the Pro 2000. Okay, there's no difference between that whole family of printers. They will all run all of those cleaning cycles. They will all have the same idiosyncrasies that everybody complains about. So just get the smaller one. You're never going to print larger than A2, so you don't really need a Pro 2000. That's like twice the price, man. So how come with my Pro 100, even when I have it cropped and set to a certain print size. I always print slightly bigger. Okay. That's a very common subject. Basically what he's saying is, in this particular case, he is saying that he wants to print a 11 by 17, I would say center on a 13 by 19 sheet. That's it. And he cannot achieve that. I showed you guys that trick a while back. We're going to go ahead and check out Lightroom a second. Now, what do you mean? Did you crop your image to an 11 by 17 ratio? Okay. And that's a lot different than what most people think. Okay. I'm going to demonstrate here a second something. So we're going to go to Lightroom, and this is the same setup that I had originally when I made that print. So here we have 13 by 19. So let's just say that he wanted to do 11 by 17. So we have the width at 11, and we'll change this to 17. Okay, now without filling to zoom, this is what we're going to get, because I did not crop my original image to that particular ratio of 11 by, wait a minute, here we go, now we got it, 11 by 17. So as you can see, my image will not fill that space, so I would have to crop it. Let's just say cropping it, and we'll do it here digitally by just zooming in to fill. And now I can actually move it slightly this way or that way. What do you mean it's not centered? You see what I mean? I just don't get that at all. So let's go ahead and figure out what would our margins be if you had to do it using the margin system. So we're going to minimize everything here a minute. And I want you to notice something. Left and right is 0.14 inches. Top is 0.11. Bottom is 0.21. Why is that happening, right? We're going to view this in landscape mode. So then this border here is going to be wider than that border, isn't it? Not, right? It's going to be wider by what? 1/10 of an inch wider. Well, let's figure out what we need to do to center this without any kind of going through too many hoops here. So 11-inch width. And we have 2 inches to play with on the width because originally this was 13. So we're going to set our width to 1 inch. And this one also to 1 inch. Okay. Keep an eye on what's happening here. So then the other measurement is 17, which means we need a 1/2 inch at either top and 1/2 inch at the bottom. Let's see how this works. You see how you still cannot do that? See? It's preventing us because that little bit of extra space down there is required in the exit or trailing edge. So here's the trick that you have to apply. And no one will tell you this, but I'm going to. Go into your printer settings and click on borderless. Just click on it, activate it. Okay? Oh, there we go. And now we should be able to set this at 11. Nope, still not letting us. Okay. That's a weird one. Maybe that's the widest. Well, we're almost at 11. 3/100ths of an inch. That's about as close as you're going to get to a nice center, evenly centered image of whatever, whatever image you want to lay down. As you can see, this is pretty much centered at this point. Except this edge here is going to be 3/300ths of an inch off. I think I can live with that. Okay, I can live with that. But again, remember that the leading edge and the bottom edge are always going to be different. Okay, the minimum margins that you have to deal with. Now, if I could do this, bring everything down to 0. What about now? Let's see if we can fix this, folks. Oh, will you look at that? Okay, I don't want to sound like oh, this is what I meant to do, but this is what I meant to do. So you saw the inadequacies of just the normal driver. Okay, this is actually using the printer's driver. It knows what the printer's limitations are as far as margins or equal margins. So the only way to be able to get a cell that is 17 by 11 inside a 13 by 19 is to do what I just did. Set it to borderless and then set the margins to 0. Okay, that's the only way you're going to be able to set the margins to 0. Okay, that's an old trick that I found out about a while ago, and it allows me to print something like this perfectly centered. So here's a 13 by 19 and a 17 by 11 or 11 by 17 can be nestled exactly in the center of that sheet of paper. Now, how accurate is your printer's paper feed? That can introduce errors as well. It can augment an error or it can diminish and neutralize an existing error. It just depends on the accuracy of the paper feeding mechanism. Yeah, so that's the way you do that. You cannot do it any other way, because you'll always have that minimum border interfering with you, preventing you from having that complete 11-inch cell width. It will be missing, 3/300ths of an inch. Can you live with that? Maybe yes, maybe no. Some people may not. But this is a way to do it so that it is perfectly centered. What if I just want to center, say, some other, say 9 by, I don't know, let's pick a number here. 9 by 15 with a humongous border. Look at that. The only way you're going to be able to do that is to use borderless and then minimize all of your margins. See that? Minimize them to 0. If you do not print borderless, you will not be able to do this. Let's go ahead and set this back to not borderless. And now you saw it shift. It shifted. I cannot move this. There's no way I can move that any other way at all. Okay, so borderless is the way to go when it comes to doing this type of work, where you want something absolutely centered. Now, if this little, oh, sorry, I didn't even show you. What a dummy. Here we go. Let me show you what I've been doing. Ha, stupid me. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and change this to borderless. We'll adjust that, and boom, it's shifted a little bit. Now I can bring my margins down to nothing. So now I have exactly this amount of ink of space here, and exactly this amount of space here. These two match, and my image is centered. Now, when I go to non-borderless, I will immediately introduce minimal margins. Watch what happens. Keep your eye on this image here. 1, 2, 3. It shifted upwards to make room for that extra wider trailing edge border. Okay? I cannot diminish these anymore. I just can't do it. It won't let me. Okay, so the only way to center an image inside a cell of a specific size you want to reproduce is to do what I just did. Now, oh, so annoying. What is that? What is that thing making noise? You have selected borderless printing. The document to be printed is enlarged so that it is slightly extends off the paper. Here's the kicker right here, folks. Print quality may deteriorate, or the sheet may be stained at the top and bottom, trailing, leading edge, depending on the type of media used. Does anybody ever read that? Probably not. Then they're shocked when they get a streak or a head strike or whatever the case is. Oh my goodness, where did that come from? Yeah, you should have read that warning. They do that to cover their, you know what, because people demand borderless printing, but they know darn well that borderless printing is really not something you should even do, because you could end up with a lot of wasted paper. All right, so the other thing that is said was the image would be enlarged. Well, some people are very finicky as to their images being enlarged, but this one was not enlarged at all, was it? I cannot move it up and down, so it was only fitted exactly to that cell size I created. Now I can shift it up and down. This is sideways, of course, but really this is the up side of the image. This is the bottom side. I can shift it for the best composition possible, or I can just undo zoom to fill, and now it is fitted perfectly. Of course, I cannot move it anymore, and that's a huge border I have to deal with. See what I mean? So everything is controllable. You can actually do whatever you wish as long as you are printing borderless and minimize all of your little margins here to 0. Now you are perfectly centered. You still add 9 by 16 or 15. We can change that to 8 if you wish. Doesn't really matter. Different situation, different cell size. This could be a more of a panoramic type shot. Again, you adjust this as you wish on the fly. Let's do a 11.5. That gives us a 3/4 inch border, top and bottom, and whatever length that is, we'll enlarge that to say 18. Let's just do that to 18. Boom, look at that. We have, let's see, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4, 3/4. Boom. And still have room to move that image around or not. Okay? But again, people don't get the fact that you just cannot force something to fit. You got to lose something. It has to be cropped one way or another. Okay? So once you get past that mental block, if you will, then you'll be more happy as you proceed to lay out your images. And don't worry about maintaining that golden camera ratio. Forget about that. Just crop your images as you need to. If I need to take off an 1/8 of an inch from something is poking into the view right here, and I want to crop it. Who cares? Who cares? It's the final result, the final impact of the image that matters. No one is going to tell you, oh, but hey, you did not keep that 3:2 ratio. Shame on you. No one's going to say that, because that image is going to have the most impact possible. The last thing you want to do is show me an image and I go, that's beautiful, but something is distracting me over there in the corner. Yeah. I catch those every single time. Yeah. Sometimes I shut my mouth because I don't want to, needlessly embarrass somebody. I'll keep it under my head. But I'll see all of these errors over at our hospital where we go, Walter Reed Medical Center. The walls are just covered with beautiful photographs, and I just view them every single time. Every single time I go, I view them, and I see the same compositional errors, okay, and cropping errors, where they should have just cut that 1 inch off. It would never affect the image, the final result. It will improve it. And no one's going to say, hey, that is not a 4:3 or a 4:5 ratio. Who cares? It really makes no difference at all. As long as that image is correctly cropped remove every bit of distracting material off of that image so that you can then present it, and the human eye will automatically detect that center of interest if you cause it to go there. And there's many tricks that you can do to force your eye subconsciously to go to the point of interest. There are ways to do that. Lots of tricks. That's what the famous movie makers do, my friends. They manipulate you as you're watching that movie through imagery and through editing, and of course color. Let's look at Facebook again, because there might be some other things. Oh, here we go. I wanted to show you guys that. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. Look at this. This is beautiful. This won first prize. He printed it with the Pro 100, and I believe he used PC inks on it. So again, beautiful. Everybody congratulated them. And again, beautiful result. Of course, you know, it's not necessarily the printer. Okay, you got a gorgeous image. Most good printers will be able to reproduce that and give you a worthy looking print. But the image comes first. If the image does not warrant printing, there's not much you can do. Kind of reminds me of some of these video channels in YouTube with these professionally produced intros. They go to Fiverr. Fiverr will do it for $5, give you an intro. And the intro is 100 times the quality of the content inside the video. You know, what's more important? Information you're giving to someone, or a fancy professional looking intro? And then you don't live up to that. It's like me, a camera's going to come out. Okay, the Mavic Mini comes out. It's been hyped now for the longest time. Speculatory reports. Some of them were fake. Some of them were half true. Misinformation. And then finally comes out, and it is what it is. Okay? You'll be able to determine now the actual truth. But the videos that had been put out were ridiculous. They were not representative of the product at all. How? Nobody had one. So how could you possibly, produce a informative video about a product that hasn't even landed on anyone's hands yet? So the same thing. If I put the super duper $100, intro on my video, and then I give you garbage information, if it smells like a pig, it is. And so that's not really important to me. I got a very plain logo. I made it myself, and just a plain old title. This is what you're going to get. What you see is what you get. Clickbait, I tried not ever to use it, because, it's just misleading. Unless you actually give the information in that clickbaity title, because often people just don't. So anyway, for those of you who are out there trying to get into this type of field, that's just a little advice. But again, as far as printing your photos, the ones that win are the ones that have that impact. Okay. And again, what is that? It is the top of a dome, it looks like, and they're shooting from underneath. Most people would center that. Okay. But centering it just doesn't give it a look of a real thing, a tangible thing. If I center it, then it's going to look more geometric, more like machine-like, so it's not going to look like a person actually photographed that. So I think that's, what he had in mind, and I'm not surprised that he did not get first place. He got first place, so that's great. So make sure that when you're cropping, again, you're the boss. When you're editing, you're the boss. You're going to try to extract that image you shot may not be the best image ever, but through judicious editing, just the same thing with videos. Through judicious editing, you can extract everything that image had to offer. Okay. And you can actually multiply the effect, the impact that the image may not have had in its raw form. It's just like those DNG files. They don't look very impressive at all until you edit them, okay? And that's what brings out the idea you may have had when you took off in the air to photograph this particular scene. And I was shooting video during these maneuvering moments, if you will. And I will do a tutorial on how to extract the most out of all that jittery video that I shot prior to actually switching over to photo camera, and actually pressing the little button to capture an image. I'll show you what to do with that and how to at least get something that would be basically mediocre as can be and make it into something interesting that people may want to watch and go, oh, wow, this is really tranquil. This is really nice. And the music, wow, that really fits the mood. So it's all psychological. It's all about psychology. How do you think those judges that are judging the all of the competitions, if you will, or the entrants, how do you think they arrive? They are affected psychologically. Sure, they're looking at technical details. Is it sharp? Is it neutral? Is it this? Or, all of the technical stuff. And then they get into the psychological aspect of an image, and they judge you. They judge you for that. So it's an art. It's something that you learn and you exploit during your, the guy from Australia, Art of Women Photography. Okay, he's a lucky guy. He gets to shoot gorgeous women, sometimes a little bit scantily clad, if you will. But again, he makes them look beautiful. They do not look skanky. No, they look classy, regardless. Okay, so that is an art. Okay, that's why he calls himself Art of Women Photography. And that's one example. You get some other photographer and it'll look skanky. It will look like, oh man, no, don't even show that here. Yeah, so there's a big difference. Let's see who else is here. They're all saying hi to Daniel. I don't know if Dan is still here with us. I hope he's taking a nap because he really needs it. Poor guy. Oh. All right. So Thomas O'Sullivan says, I gotta go talk to you gentlemen soon. Bye, Josie. That's me. Steve, Mike B, and everyone else in the chat. Steve Carpenter says, you take care, Thomas Sullivan. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the evening. And George Gabb says that he likes 1-inch borders all around. Well, you got to take into consideration the size of the final print. So a 1-inch border on a 20 by 30, that may be a little narrow, you see. So a 1-inch border on a 5 by 7, that may be a bit wide. So it depends on your size. I like a 1-inch border on a 13 by 19, a 17 by 22. That'll work really nice. I do that even with my 17 by 24s that I do on aquarella paper. I'll put a 1-inch border all around, and it works really, really nice. It gives you enough of a border, and your image is large enough for people to really see it. I've seen prints where the border is like 3 inches wide, and I don't get that at all. I like my borders, but not to that point, not to that level. Drone Worship says, what's up, boys? All right, I see you are here. Howdy, Dan. How are you doing, sir? Drone Worship. Steve Carpenter says that. Bobby Bo, I just found out while printing on the Photoshop CS6. That's a very old one. To eliminate borders, I jump into the driver, set it to borderless. Then, okay. Yeah, that's what I just demonstrated. On an application such as Lightroom or even QImage, where you can set a specific space for your image to sit on, That works flawlessly. Bobby Bo, I get a cropping frame that lets center and choose exact size for custom border size. Okay. JLS Golf is here from Southern California. Mike B says, Drone Worship, how are you doing, Dan? Everybody wants to know how Dan is doing. Erman's Banger, I like the content aware fill in Photoshop for removing edge distractions. I think it works a lot better than spot healing in Lightroom or PS. Yeah, but the problem with that is that it just basically fakes information. I will play around. If I have to use that, ultimately, I will use it. But let me tell you, I can detect it every single time that somebody used it. So what I like to do is just simply, very judiciously crop until you remove something that may be an attraction getter that is not part of the original reason for that image to exist. In other words, I want you to look here, but everybody's looking over there because of that little branch sticking in. Crop it. It will not lose any impact. In fact, it will increase the impact of your image. So content aware, yeah. I've seen it used a lot when you merge panorama pictures and you get that weird border that changes, especially if your images have any kind of distortion on them. When they are blended together, you will get all these borders. And if it's just plain sky, then by all means use content aware. If you really want to keep it, I always end up just cropping it. I don't lose anything important. In fact, it just helps. I'm going to be demonstrating how to do that. I did a triple shot panel, if you will, of the front yard at Nathan. We'll do that in my next video, and I'll demonstrate how that works. So that's a pretty neat procedure. You just go ahead and shoot on a tripod. It would be fantastic because you just basically every few degrees you shoot a shot, and then you blend them all together and choose your type of panoramic you want to create, and then the software will do it all for you. Lightroom does that automatically within Lightroom. You used to have to export it over to Photoshop to be able to do that in the past, but now Lightroom handles that for you. Ansel Adams' photos look nothing like his prints. Whose prints? That's Anthony Petit. Art of Women Photography. Thank you, Jose. You hit the nail on the head on the way that I shoot. Yes, I've seen your work. I encourage everyone to check out his Facebook. Don't let your wife see you. Okay. Jesse Gibson. Hi, everybody. Alrighty. Henry Stoffel. Hello from Medford, Massachusetts. Oh, man. Today I was at IKEA, as I mentioned. I met a gentleman who had a military hat on, and he said Vietnam veteran, all of this stuff, combat veteran, had all kinds of decorations in there. And I always reach out to these guys and I thank them for their service. We got to talking. I wanted to go home with this guy. Okay. I told my wife, hey, you just hook up with his wife and go out for some coffee. We're going to hang out. It turns out that even though we were 10 years apart, and when we served, we had pretty much parallel careers. Yeah. Isn't that amazing? So it was very enjoyable. I will go out of my way to find someone who I think might be a veteran, and I'll just walk right up to them and say, excuse me, sir, did you by any chance serve in the military? Yes. None of them want to really talk about it. But once you get them talking, they just become your friend. So wherever he was, I have been. It's amazing, just uncanny, scary that we have such a closely parallel career in the Army. He did 22 years, I did 21 and 8 months or something like that it was. So anyway, that was fun. That was the only good thing about going to IKEA other than buying the trinkets that we bought. I was worried about getting back and getting that video done so that you guys could watch it before the live stream, but I just could not help it. I had to talk to this guy a little bit longer, so that was fun. Guido Gilkins from Belgium. All right. What part of Belgium? I was there for 3 years. My son was born there when I was with Shape. That's Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe in Mézières. So that's close to southwest of Brussels. Thanks for another excellent live stream. Got to run. Wishing you and everyone a wonderful rest of your weekend. Take care. Yeah, we already switched all the clocks, so no need to worry about that tonight. And if you notice, I did put you as a moderator. I hope you keep coming back. We do this every Saturday night. I do announce them, so whenever you want to, just come on in and join us. All right, let me see what else we got here. It's 7:30. We got a few more minutes to go. Let's see what else is available here. Again, all I wanted to discuss was these ways of making sure that you can control your neutrality in your prints. I know what I was going to bring up. There's always got to be someone who sort of disagrees, and that's fine. Disagreement is great. That creates dialogue between 2 or 3 people. He said that neutrality is not all it lives up to be. I mean, you don't really necessarily like something neutral. I said, yes, I fully agree, but that should be the final step. Okay. You don't want to start with, let's just say, let me think of a good analogy. You don't want to start with something that's off, okay, and then treat it as something that is right on. In other words, so you need control. See, I grew up. I grew up. I spent half my life in a lab, and I don't mean a photo lab. I mean a biological lab. I did histotechnology. I did electron microscopy. I did all sorts of things, all sorts of different assays. We had control reagents. That's reagents that either have a specific pH, a specific biological condition. I work with monoclonal antibodies to detect the presence of anything inside cells. And so you needed controls, because without the controls, how do you know what your results, how do you know if your results were genuine, correct? Okay. How do you know that? So you need positive controls, negative controls. And your positive control has to be at a certain level of positivity. That means that you're within that narrow window of compliance or I forget the term, where you allow plus or minus. Okay, so negative control should be negative. Okay, no indication of anything happening. Okay, so if you're doing something that's supposed to show you a stained result, like with immunohistochemistry, you have your control, and that shows you the area. You know what areas are supposed to stain, and they stain. And then your negative control, nothing stains. If your negative control stains, your assay was off. You made a big mistake somewhere. So you want that normal looking positive control, and of course your negative control should be nil. Okay, you can have a basement level, but you subtract that. So then whatever you see in the unknown sample, you know that that's genuine. So why would you not want something to be neutral to begin with? I don't want my files coming out of my camera to be consistently pink. No, I want them to be consistently neutral. And if they are slightly off because of the sensor or the conversion of that digital data that it captures into something that's we can then visualize, then I want something like this. I want to be able to correct that. It's only going to be minimal. Okay, a good camera will produce a really good file, and it might only be just slightly off, but this will bring it to nailed down perfection almost. The camera profiles that we could create using this will bring those images before you even begin to edit them to near perfection. It will correct for the inadequacies of that sensor. Okay, so you get them to reproduce colors that they normally would not be able to reproduce. That profile will take care of it, will actually fix it for you. So then you visualize them on your calibrated monitor. So now you can trust what you see. What you see is like, wow, okay, I really see the difference. Whereas if it was off too, what's the point, right? So now you begin to edit, and you're editing finally under the two best conditions possible. Okay, you not only corrected the errors that the sensor may have introduced or the incapability of the sensor to reproduce with a camera profile, you loaded it onto your calibrated monitor, so whatever the profile produced is faithfully represented to your eyeballs by your monitor, which is also calibrated. So if your white point is still a little bit off, you correct it with this. You're not changing color now. You're just changing globally a slight off condition as far as color temperature. Okay, it might be very minor, but this will bring you to perfection. Now you're at a perfect condition. You let the ball roll now. From now on, you can do whatever you want. Okay, you create that duplicate file in Lightroom. Boom, it's just one click. Right click, boom, you create a new file, a new virtual file, and you edit that to death. You create another one, edit that a different way. Create a third one, edit that a different way. Come back and visualize all three of them. Which one do you like best? Okay, but you start off at as close to perfection as possible. And then you can deviate. When you play the piano, you better know those rudimentary scales. Perfect, at perfection, mechanical perfection, before you start to introduce your mood to your playing, your interpretation to your playing. You cannot interpret something that is not perfect to begin with. So you learn perfectly how to play the piano. I mean, technically perfect, and then you apply your interpretive mood changing modes. Okay, the same thing with photography. Again, you might disagree with me or not, but this is the way that I work. And I hope that's the way that you guys may want to take up your photography. We have a new question here. Roger, Gujord, so Gujord from Norway. He's a Norwegian, so he's going to have a name that I could not possibly pronounce because of my inadequacy. So he's here with us a little late, but I welcome you anyway. You'll be able to catch this on the replay. Make sure that you do that so you don't miss anything we've discussed so far. Unless you've already been here for a while, we just didn't want to really join on the chat. Let me see something I haven't done yet. How many people do we have here? Let's see. I really forgot to check. Wow. 32. That's pretty good. Wow. That's amazing. Thank you. Thank you guys for coming on board. Let's see. Angel Jose KLR from El Salvador. All right. You realize how many Salvadorians are there, Salvadoreños, in my area. Yeah, we have a ton. And I teach English for to help out the newly arrived immigrants. And so glad to have you here, Angel. Angel, by the way, which means angel from heaven. So Angel, Jose, I cannot afford a Pro 1000. Need to print 13 by 21, which is the next step down printer, the Pro 100. Pro 100, my friend. You'll be able to print up to 13 by 20, almost 26 inches long. Okay. And with the Pro 100, initially you will be able to get it for like $350, I believe, but then you'll get a $250 Visa card when you file your rebate. So you need to get it through one of the companies like B&H or any of the big camera stores that work online. because they're the ones that are going to provide you with the ability to file for that rebate. So you're going to pay about $350, get $250 back. You also receive a box of 13 by 19 paper. Also, that's worth about $50 by itself. So sometimes you get it for like $150 net minus the paper, comes out to about $100, or you get a $250 minus $300. That's $350. That leaves $100 minus the $50 for the paper you get for free. Net price $50. You cannot lose. That's what I would really recommend. I don't know where you're located, Angel. If you are actually in El Salvador, that would be a little difficult to achieve down there. But if you're here and you are from El Salvador, but you're living here, then no problem. You can just order online from one of these companies. Just check out to see what they have to offer. I don't know whether you can do that from Amazon or you can get the rebate directly from Canon if you order from Canon USA. If you're here, whether they actually offer, I don't know how that works because I have never done that myself. Posiblemente tienes que ordenar la impresora de una de las compañías fotográficas que, por ejemplo, en Nueva York. Okay, those are the ones that will allow you to apply for a rebate. I don't know if anyone else here can help out with that. Everyone that I bought on local Craigslist from people off the trunk of their car, So if anyone here has any help for this young man, go ahead and offer it. Let's see what else we got here in Facebook. Okay, I ruffled a few feathers the other night as well when I recommended that people who use the Mac OS, please refrain from updating your OS the second it is offered, especially if you photo print. Some people have no problems. Some people have a lot of problems. And it's due to the incompatibility of whatever the current tool you're using with your printer. In the case of the Pro 1000, we have several tools that we can use. Sometimes it takes them a longer amount of time to catch up. In other words, Canon may not create a version of the accounting manager that will work with Catalina, for instance. You see, so if you went ahead and updated to Catalina and you have a Pro 1000 and you were using the accounting software, the accounting manager, maybe the current accounting manager will not work. Okay, some people have not had any problems with that. Some people have. So right now, supposedly they are creating a new version that will be compatible with Catalina. But just take it easy. If it ain't broke, you know what I mean. So don't think that you must update immediately. Okay, for me, an update has to offer me a hug and a kiss and a nice warm breakfast for me to update it. Okay, just because it says update and it's got a pretty new name, I'm not going to update, especially if I'm photo printing, because it will affect possibly my drivers, the location of my ICC profiles may all of a sudden change. Things can disappear. They do. Whether it's happened to you or not, I have too many other examples from people who constantly contact me. Oh, blah, 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 blah. And I go like, wow, that's a weird one. I've never heard of that one. Oh, wait a minute. What OS are you on? Mac. Ah, man. And I go like, why is this happening? Why? Okay. Windows. Say what you will about Windows. I think Windows 10 is going to be here forever. They're just going to incrementally update it here and there. It's not going to be a major update. So my drivers, even drivers for my 1400 work. You know how old that printer is? They still work. Okay? So that's what I'm getting to. Just don't go, ball me in an update just because it is available. Don't stand in line just because overnight just because you want that new phone. It'll be available next month. Why do you have to have it tonight? You see what I mean? With photo printing, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Don't, why should I update my firmware on my Pro 1000? Am I ever going to print a panorama with it? No. Should I do it just for informative reasons? Yeah. But do I really need it? Not really. I really do not. I already got a P800. I can print the length of the room. Why do I need to, get my Pro 1000 to be able to do that? It doesn't have a roll adapter. Feeding long sheets of paper will be the biggest pain in the butt you could imagine. Okay? Getting them perfectly aligned. No, that's near impossible to do. Really. The longer the sheet gets, the more likely you will develop a skew, even if it's if it start off microscopically small. By the time 40 something inches have passed through, you're going to start off with a 1-inch border on one end and end up with a 3/4 inch border on the other end because of that slight skew. And yeah, there's no way to really avoid that. So again, do I have to update the firmware? Of course not. Will I do it? Probably yes, just for the sake of information I can pass on. But that would be the only reason. I would have no other reason to do that. So Angel says, gracias, B&H, sure I can do that and ship down here. Thanks, young man. Okay, so I hope so. If they can do that for you, then, that would be great. But make sure that you can get that Canon rebate. You have to order, like John Hamby says, you have to order from a Canon authorized dealer. So B&H certainly is one of those. Roger Gooford says, Canon just released update for Mac OS Catalina for the Pro 1000. Great. Yeah, that should never happen like that. That should be already. In other words, Mac should tell Canon, Epson, anyone who has any kind of firmware, drivers, applications that work with any product, hey, we're gonna give you a heads up. In 1 week, we're going to release this, or a month from now, we're going to release this. I know that they knew they were going to release Catalina more than a month ago. Give those companies a chance so that Catalina users, once they install that, do not experience any kind of problems. You want seamless PC SE for the Pro 100, seamless transition. Okay, no problems between here and there. Again, no hurdles to be jumped. No ditches to fall under or in. Yeah, that's it. I don't understand why that even happens. Okay, it should not. Let's see what else. Let's jump over to the comment section on YouTube. I had a couple of questions here that people were asking. We're talking about, blocking printers. And so you start getting into the political side of that. And I really don't want to, but simply what happens is that in Europe, the reason those printers are not blocked over there is very simple. Let me go ahead and come back here in a minute. Antitrust laws. They're just more strict over there in EU than here. So here, these companies can get away with blocking you from using a product that you should have every right to use. It's your fault if you mess it up. Allow me to mess it up. Okay, I'm not going to file a warranty claim because I know I messed it up. I shouldn't have used that product. I chose to use it. It messed up my printer. That's my problem, But no, you cannot do that here. Let's see what else we got here. I think someone was referring to a video here. Oh boy. I'm glad that people are looking at my older videos. That's awesome. Somebody says, "Dear sir, thank you for this comparison. I was comparing, I believe, the Pro 1 and Pro 100. Yeah, he's asking me if I should shoot some macro footage of these prints. And the problem with doing that is that I don't have a, basically what he's referring to is when I do a comparison. So for instance, if I print a collage of images for the Pro 1 and the same file through the Pro 100, and I just hold them up to the camera, you really cannot tell the difference. But we're not looking at minute differences in sharpening and, you know, all of that. We're looking at color rendition. So although he wants to pixel peep, I don't think that really helps, because I don't know too many people that walk up to a photograph and do this. I would give them a smack on the head if they did that. You know, don't do that. Back off. You know. So what I like to do rather is to look at two images such as these. Let me see if I can show you these again. And rather than having me do this or stick that right there like that, it'll be out of focus anyway. You know, not many cameras can actually do that. I just hold it up like this. You're looking at the global difference. Okay? You're just looking at the global difference. One of these is PC and one of these is OEM. And it's up to you to guess. Remember I said that PC had a slightly stronger black? Again, you can't really go by this. See, the monitor here is reflecting light upon this surface. So it's kind of hard to tell. But look at the overall color rendition. That's pretty amazing. Let me move it behind my microphone. Let me back up so you get less computer reflection off of it. So again, I'll just leave that as a mystery, which is which. You've seen me demonstrate this in the past far too many times. So you saw how close those two results were. One is OEM and one is PC. And PC what? PC Signature Edition or PC with the new cyan ink? Yeah, one of them is with the new cyan ink. There you go. That's the best that I can do. The bottom of area here is always going to be a little bit darker because of my lighting. You see, now this one's a little bit darker. So again, the matching of the overall color is about as flawless as you can get. But again, one of those was PC Signature Edition with the new cyan ink, and then the other one was pure OEM, complete OEM, and both were printed with the driver controlling color. So again, that's the thing. That's the thing. Okay, time to go to sleep. Thanks, Jose, and everyone. Charles Verbruggen. Yeah, you were across the ocean, my friend. Go ahead and go to bed already. You're too late already. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Somebody was asking me, this is drone related, but basically about the type of images that the drone can take. So a lot of these drones can do a sequence of photographs to create a 360-degree panorama, but then what happens is you load them and your software will stitch them together. So you have to take overlapping pictures, and there are functions on the applications that the drone uses for flying to sort of automate that function. So you go up to a certain level, you set the camera angle to a certain level, and then it just starts to yaw, click, 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 and it'll take however many photographs, and then you stitch it together, and you have one of those weird type photos that you can actually look on the phone, and as you turn your phone, it will pan through the whole 360 degree. Another type of so-called panorama that it can do is the spherical one. Okay, so what it will do that as well. It will then rotate the camera down and do the various angles and also straight down. So here's where the Anafi comes in, the winner for this type of weird photography, because it can put the gimbal straight up. DJI cannot do that. Autel cannot do that. Okay, any of the other drone companies, they just don't have, Unique cannot do that. So here's what happens when you create a 360 sphere. You can then go inside physically and look at all the different surfaces. All of the other drones, they will fake the sky. They will fake the above the horizon, because they just simply cannot shoot at the sky. So the Anafi is able to do that. It's able to do all sorts of different panoramic modes, including a true 360 degree sphere. Okay, so is that what he wanted to know? Yes, that's what he wanted to know. And so one of those things that just for me is amazing, because I was able to go through Nathan's Woods, go through the well-established path that he has, tilted the camera up, and I just went for a walk with the drone flying through the woods, and I was able to just catch the top of the trees, just turning colors with the light shining through it, the translucent leaves, and it was quite a nice effect. I have to say, I thought it was fantastic. And again, that would have been impossible with anything else. Sure, I could have used a handheld camera and just held it straight up and walked, but then that's not the same thing. That just doesn't have the fluidity of actually flying. Here's the guy that said neutrality is overrated. What you're describing destroys the natural ambience of the scene. What natural ambience of the scene? The actual ambience? Guess what? That's neutral. If you mean your print, you do that after you achieve neutrality. Done. Okay. I didn't delete it. I left it there for other people to see. I gave them a big explanation as well. Yeah, somebody did enjoy me describing the complete profiling process for the workflow. Again, really, it just takes a little bit more work, but the rewards are there. So what are we doing this coming week? Hopefully, I'll have time in my hands to be able to produce some fairly good content. We're going to do some tutorial types of videos. Enough of the talking head. We're going to do tutorials hands-on. I'm going to go outside and do some shots, so I'll be able to put this device into play. I'll show you how to use it. I'll show you how it affects your images. We'll do different conditions. We'll do a generally cloudy one, and I'll use the same camera, same lens every time. And again, it's not going to be too critical, because if I can do a cloudy profile, then that should be good enough for most other images that are shot under the same cloudy conditions. It's like the presets on cameras: sunny, cloudy, tungsten, and all of that. Usually those are white balanced presets. So I'll be able to do that. We'll do a sunny one. Right now is the sun is getting low on the horizon. So again, it should be good enough for the next several months. As long as it's sunny, that profile should work. We'll do videos on that. We'll do demonstrations on that. At least it'll get me back out and start using my camera once again. Yeah, so that's the whole point. Then we're going to go ahead and do some more tutorials in Lightroom. Okay, I really highly recommend Lightroom because it really is like the only editing tool out there that I know of that is designed by photographers for photographers, and it's about as advanced as you could ever get. Okay, and it allows you to do so many things that you would do as a photographer if you were in the wet lab. Okay, they call it Lightroom because you're not longer in the dark room. That's basically what it means. So that is my favorite for editing, and then I go over to, Q image and print. That's basically my workflow. So we'll do that. We'll do some demonstrations of how to do this type of process, how to achieve a neutral image with a black point and a white point that is inside that fence, okay, that histogram fence, and that gets you at the best starting point, complete range of tones and neutrality. Now you're allowed to deviate from that, okay? And that, once you know, you always start from a known condition. See, that was the key. This guy doesn't get it, okay? You start from a known condition. That is your control, your baseline. And then you deviate from that. What's wrong with that? And you end up at whatever your artistic eye wanted to see. Simple. Let's see. John Hamby, I watched your video on protective UV sprays. It was a few years old. Any updates? This is in regards to the Canon Pro 1000 and pigment inks. Well, the Pro 1000 with original pigment inks was rated without any kind of sprays. Prints were made on, for instance, this will be a great example. Thanks for bringing that up. So this is Pro Luster. Is this right side up or right side or upside down? I think it goes like this. So this print created in the Pro 1000, not 100% OEM. This contains about 7 colors from PC. So I could put that on my wall right there. I get light through my door when I do open that shade, but this is pretty subdued lighting. That'll last for several decades without any fading whatsoever. But if I take that and expose it to an onslaught of light like Ardenberg does, he got probably about 13 megapixel of exposure before it began to fade. 13 megalux of light exposure before it began to fade. And then he tested the same image, the same printer, same inks, but this time it was Red River Polydor Soft Gloss Rag. See, this is RC coated. This has UVAs. That other paper from Red River does not. It's a pure so-called what's the term for long-lasting archival paper, and that required something like 77 megalux of exposure before the image began to fade. 1377. The paper had a lot to do with that huge increase in longevity. Same inks, same printer. How could that be, right? This is Canon paper. Well, this is resin coated, high OBA count. So those papers will not last long. But I guarantee you, if I put that on my wall right there, I can come back. I'll probably be gone and having fun with my parents. Okay? And that print will still be pristine on that wall. Now, if I put that in a shop where they do a lot of arc welding and the air is full of ozone, yeah, it will affect that longevity a lot quicker than necessarily I. Oh, also the UV created by arc welding will destroy that image, even though it was done with, OEM inks on a top-notch printer like the Pro 1000. So many variables, so many different conditions can have an adverse or a good effect on your prints. Now, if I take this and I spray with a UV protectant, it will last even longer. So Pro 1000 by itself, again, like I said, I can put this on the wall. I can probably get 20 years out of it. And 13 divided into 77, how many times is that? How many times does 13 fit? I don't know. 6 times, 5 times? That's a 5x increase in longevity simply by switching to another paper. I didn't really think there would be that vast of a difference in performance. So if I take that paper, that's like 77 megalux of light before it even begins to fade, and I protect those as well, oh my gosh, 200 years maybe, so it depends. And also what area of the country do you live in? A lot of smog in the air, that's ozone also. So too many variables to even begin to worry about. But again, if you are worried about it, go ahead and use one of those protective sprays. Hopefully they will not change the surface look, appearance of the print. That's what you basically want to do. You don't really want to alter the look of that print, because then what's the point of choosing a particular paper surface because you love that look and then you apply a spray and it changes the look? Well, that would be of no point. Or you have a certain surface paper and you mount it on the glass. What would be the point of that? You want to display that print raw on the wall, mounted on a board, without any kind of covering whatsoever. Well, if that's what you want to do, then you better have top-notch inks on top-notch paper under good conditions. Yeah, that's it. Alrighty. Okay, I think we've been on for the customary 3 hours. I'll give you guys a bit of time to come up with any possible extra questions here. I'm looking at DP Review forum right now, see if there's anything brand new here that we can cover that would be applicable for us. A lot of the people here are talking about all-in-one printers, and of course, I don't deal with that because primarily there's just too many models, and there's no way that I could house them here, nor could I afford to buy them. So I just stick with the printers that I do have. Someone's asking a question about 6 ink versus 4 ink printer quality, and they're talking about the L series from Epson. Not really suitable for photography. Sure, they'll print. They will print photographs. The only problem is that those printers, and you guys may be aware of these printers, they're the L series. They have like a built-in sys unit in the printer itself, and really it operates perfectly well. The ink refills are super cheap. It's like buying third-party inks. They're that cheap. And you know why? Because that's what they're giving you. Epson is giving you really low-quality third-party inks for that particular printer, because it's just meant for, you got an office meeting, you got to make a quick flyer, quick handouts, that type of thing. They're going to be looked at for a couple of days and in the shredder. That's all you need. You really don't need top-quality inks. The problem is that a lot of you folks out there are looking at these printers as if they're going to be great for photo printing. And they're simply not. They're just not going to work out. The inks will not stand up the test of time. They will not. They will fade pretty quickly, okay? Precision colors, it's like 20 times better, okay? Yeah, so don't even consider them. Now, if you're just going to use that to print your daily junk off the internet, or you want to quick print something you're going to read later, you don't want to sit in front of the computer, then yeah, those are great for that, because you have a huge bulk amount of ink and you can knock out print after print after print, copy on plain paper, and they're cheap to operate, but not for photo printing. They're just really not designed for that. Canon makes the M or G series, basically the same application of a sys unit, built into the printer. Again, the inks are just as bad as the cheapest third-party ink from eBay, okay? And the printers are not that inexpensive either. They're pretty costly because the technology is good. You know, it's an internal sys unit that actually works. The only problem is that the inks are just not really up to par. Art Templar says, Rob Templar says, thanks from Central New York for your chat and work. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed this tonight. It was, with all the mess that has been happening the last couple of days with the power outage and all my printers going offline and you name it, it happened. I finally got one video done, and I got it at the nick of time tonight. And hopefully there'll be a lot more to follow along those lines. I want to get back into the instructional tutorial style of video that can be then serialized 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. And you guys can then go back to a specialized playlist and possibly sit down and view some of these videos one after the other. Get all of the information you need because it'll be sequentially done, and that should help. I hope it helps anyway. All right. Boy, people are responding to my recognizing the new memberships in my Facebook group. That's good. I thought I would not want to do that, but in the long run, I thought it would be a good idea. So really, people apparently do appreciate that. Oh, I know what I wanted to show you guys. Hang on. Let me locate that again. Okay, here we go. Yeah, this is pretty good. I'll leave you guys with this one, okay? Don't want to keep you guys up too much. All right, so, yeah, this is not what it seems, okay? This is just a representation of... He did a video. You can click on this and view it, okay? Does bit depth matter? 8-bit versus 12 versus 16-bit. Now remember that Canon printers, when you use them on a Windows machine, they have that extra driver called the something X, I forget what it was called now. And it allows you to print 16-bit images. Does it really? I don't know about that because it would have to bypass Windows inability to print 16-bit. Okay, I don't know. But anyway, very quickly, 8-bit produces 16,777,216 colors. Simply because you multiply 255 from 0 to 255 times 255 times 255, and you get that result. Okay, that's 8-bit. 16-bit gives you, let me count here, 281,976,710,656 colors. So that's what it means. It's able to then reproduce. Again, you're limited by your monitor, you're limited by your printer. But technically speaking, 8-bit can reproduce this many variations of color, and 16-bit can reproduce or display this number of variation of different colors. Isn't that amazing? Whether that really applies to a real world situation or not, I really do not know. But I found that to be really, really amazing. So, how could you do that? Well, you go ahead and you open up a raw image, either in the raw converter in Photoshop, or open up directly in Lightroom. See, I love Lightroom because I don't have to open up anything in the raw converter and then export it out to either a PSD or a TIFF file. I just work directly on the raw file inside of Lightroom, you see. So if I want to then export that out, I can indeed export it as a 16-bit TIFF, okay? or for a PSD TIFF file, a PSD 16-bit file. Okay, and if I'm on a Mac can actually print directly to 16-bit. Okay, Windows really cannot. That's why Mac doesn't need that XPS or whatever it's called driver. It doesn't exist. It's not needed. It's not needed on a Mac. You can print 16-bit. Now, how does that come into play? Let's say you have a shot like I have earlier here, and it has the sky, and it's very, very gently graduated. The more bit rate you have, the less likely you will have banding between those transitional points all along that sky. Okay, low bit rate, you will probably have some banding. High bit rate, you will not have any banding. But you have to start with a raw file. Okay, you cannot go from a low quality JPEG and then just save it as a 16-bit. No. That will not work. You have to start at the highest possible quality level. Okay, and then save it at the highest possible quality file in 16-bit TIFF, for instance, or PSD. And then print it using a top quality printer. And again, the XPS driver may work for Windows. I really do not know whether it does or not, whether actually it does or not. I've been told otherwise. But a Mac can definitely print to 16-bit. So there you go. Alrighty. Unless there's anything new, we're going to go ahead and say good night. Let me show you what I was talking about. I don't think... Did I show you this? Yes. This is what I was referring to right here. So, again, 16,777 plus colors with 8-bit and in the trillions. Trillions, billions, and millions, and hundreds of thousands, and yeah. Okay, that's way too many colors, right? But again, it will come into play when you have areas that have transitions that are so gradual that they will actually introduce banding. And I do have a file in my Facebook group that will allow you to test that, okay, when you print it. Yes. So anyway, that is it for now. I hope you guys enjoyed this tonight. Let me go ahead and minimize. We still got 25 watching here. So again, I'm going to give you guys another chance to come up with any questions you may have. Anything in your minds that you want to ask. This is your chance. You're going to do it without any kind of wait, any kind of, have to wait till tomorrow while I email you back or anything like that. You have me right now in front of you. So go ahead and ask anything you would like, and I'll try to address this. Otherwise, we'll just say so long for now, and we'll see you next week. So go ahead and, like I said, anything that you want to discuss, this is your chance. I'm going to get my music cued if no one has anything else. Okay, it looks like that's going to be it then. All right, so let me play my music here. We'll switch over to the goodbye slide, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you so much for coming by.